The journey begins with a man on the brink of death, slowly recalling his life as if it were a beautiful dream. He mutters that he once desired to destroy it all, devour it, raze it completely. Now, the scene reveals the man defeated, barely able to speak as he lies before a knight. With his final breath, he slips into stillness. Upon confirming his death, the knight turns away and coldly remarks that this is a fitting end for a wicked villain. Thus concludes the epilogue of the story. We shift to the real world, where Nam Woo-hyun, a weary novelist, sits drained from work. He has nearly completed his series, the final chapter drawing to a close with the villain's demise. As he plans to wrap up the story, he reflects bitterly on how miserable the experience has been. He never wanted to write this story in the first place, yet tomorrow it will all be over. Stretching his aching body, he tells himself that regrets are best left behind. Just as Nam begins to relax, a sudden knock on the door startles him. He frowns. Who could be visiting this late at night? Suspicious and unsettled, he walks to the door and calls out, but the knocking abruptly stops. Thinking someone might have accidentally knocked on his door, Nam sighs and decides to head to bed. As he stretches his neck on the way, something peculiar catches his eye, a piece of paper floating gently down through the air. He watches it settle on the floor and wonders where it came from. Curious, Nam picks up the paper. It bears a strange message. This is a gift. Ask when you are in need. Before he can process what it means, an ominous red and black aura erupts from the paper. From within that aura, the very villain from his novel emerges into the room. Nam stumbles back in disbelief, unable to determine whether what he's seeing is real. The villain smiles grimly and mutters that this is how he was always meant to die. Addressing Nam directly, the villain reveals that he devoted 10 years of his life to honing his blade, all in pursuit of vengeance against those who stole his family. He lost everything: family, friends, his lover, one by one, and gave up countless things along the way. Yet even after all his sacrifices, he still failed. The villain glares at Nam and says that no one understands this better than the one who wrote it, him. Just as Nam begins to realize that this is indeed the setting and background he created for his antagonist, the villain raises a hand and releases his dark aura, engulfing Nam. With a chilling smile, the villain urges him to carry out the deed in his place. Nam begins to glitch, reality around him warping, and the villain tells him that he will bear witness to everything. Suddenly, in the lavish master bedroom of a mansion, a man with crimson-red eyes jolts awake. He sits up, disoriented, and wonders if he had died the night before. Everything around him feels unfamiliar, including the clothes he's wearing. Rising from the bed, the auburn-haired man walks over to a mirror. He gasps upon seeing his reflection, a sharp, slime mouth and narrow, expressionless eyes beneath ominous crimson hair. There's no doubt, he has possessed someone else's body. Nam Woo-hyun has become Reincarnated, the most powerful villain in his novel. To make matters worse, he finds himself mere days before Arsen's destined assassination. Arsen belongs to the infamous Arsen family, a half-demon bloodline known for their unparalleled strength in the Empire's history. Their demonic lineage once made them the most powerful noble house, but their downfall came at the hands of 6 rival families. Now, Reincarnated is the final living member of the disgraced house. This is the very story Nam wrote, the tale of a tragic villain whose only crime was seeking revenge and failing. Perhaps that's why Arsen brought the author himself into the world he created. Realizing his imminent death, Nam, or rather, Arsen, opens a window and contemplates his situation. Despite being described in the novel as the most talented in swordsmanship and demonic power, Arsen was always meant to fall short compared to the protagonists. No matter what he planned or endured, the villain never triumphed. That was the nature of the story Nam had designed. And now, trapped in Arsen's body, he can't even access mana, an essential force in this world. Nam panics. His own narrative is now the noose tightening around his neck. As he looks around the room in desperation, he notices a familiar piece of paper lying on the bed. Picking it up, realization dawns on him. It's the same mysterious paper that appeared just before Arsen emerged in his world. In the chaos, he had completely forgotten about it. Now, that forgotten gift might be his only chance to survive. Looking at the paper, he thinks to himself that even if it helps just a little, he can't afford to be picky now. he needs whatever assistance he can get. He recalls that, back in his world, the paper claimed he could ask for anything when in need. However, the paper now appears completely blank. Panic surges through him as he begins to fear that he may die helplessly. Suddenly, text appears on the surface. The paper poses a question. Does he, the creator, know how to use the gift? It also offers two options, yes and no. Seeing that the entity behind the paper refers to him as creator and not Adele, he immediately realizes that the one controlling this must be Adele himself. Choosing to play along, he writes yes on the paper. In response, the paper reveals that it can answer any of his questions, but some come at a cost. The more significant the question, the higher the price. The creator's first question is whether he can return home. The answer is a simple, cold no. He had suspected as much. Thinking ahead, he quickly asks how to properly use mana and Adele's unique traits. Since this question doesn't require any payment, he is enveloped in a soft blue light. Information about mana manipulation and the specific characteristics of Adele's abilities begin to imprint themselves into his mind. A final message asks if he accepts the transfer. Upon accepting, the mana flow and skill sets begin to gradually integrate into him. The first trait is darkness, which suppresses the senses of others. He attempts to summon it, and while it does activate, the effect is weak at first. Next, he tries killing intent, which restricts the opponent's strength. Finally, he tests position transfer, which allows him to swap places with a chosen object. Testing its range, he finds it's limited to 20 yards, far weaker than the distance he had at his peak. To practice, he targets a suit of armor. The skill activates, but he's launched backward and crashes to the ground. Now begins the race against time. Will the knights reach him first to carry out the assassination, or will he master these powers in time to survive? At the Arson family estate, a man clad in armor approaches the estate gate and, in a commanding tone, demands the whereabouts of Adele. This man is none other than Captain Feltz of the Leon Kingdom. Watching from the shadows, Adele lets out a soft, amused laugh. The gatekeeper informs Captain Feltz that Lord Adele has not left the estate in quite some time. Unimpressed and suspicious, the captain breaks through the front door, only to find Adele already standing there, waiting. Now with the author possessing Adele's body, he greets the captain calmly, remarking that it seems Sir Feltz has no intention of letting a mere boy survive. Feltz scoffs, calling Adele's behavior absurd, and immediately orders the soldiers to kill him. As one soldier moves in, Adele swiftly activates his ability, designating a position transfer spot, specifically the soldier's sword. In a blink, he swaps places with the sword and appears directly in front of the soldier and takes the soldier down with a single strike. The remaining soldiers are momentarily stunned, but Captain Feltz, already expecting resistance, quickly regains composure and commands all troops to attack. Outnumbered, Adele leaps through a nearby window, throws his dagger to the ground mid-air, and seconds later transfers himself to that exact location. Once on the ground, he dashes into the forest surrounding his estate. Seeing this, Captain Feltz yells for his men to pursue him immediately. As he races deeper into the woods, the author, now fully inhabiting Adele, thinks that even if he's lucky enough to shake off the knights, his chances of long-term survival are slim. As a last resort, he decides to search for the hidden gate within the forest that leads into the demonic realm. That realm, ravaged by prolonged war with humans, might accept him if he can prove his worth. The biggest obstacle, however, is locating the gate. Adele never had time to prepare in advance, and now he doesn't even know its exact position. Meanwhile, the knights spread out to comb the area, closing in fast. Adele hides behind a tree, holding his breath, but a misstep causes a twig to snap underfoot. Within moments, a massive energy wave from Captain Feltz blasts through the forest. As the smoke clears, the captain approaches and mocks Adele for hiding, cornered and running low on mana. Adele realizes he only has a few skill activations left before he's entirely vulnerable, and he still hasn't found the gate. As a desperate measure, he pulls out the magical paper and asks for the gate's location. The system responds, stating the information costs 100 gold coins or an A-rank artifact or higher. Frustrated, Adele curses the paper, asking how he's supposed to come up with such items while being hunted. Just then, another powerful attack from the captain hits him squarely, launching him into the air. As Feltz approaches, he asks why Adele ran. Was it because he wanted to live? Feltz declares that Adele is going to die here, whether he likes it or not. Lying wounded, Adele grits his teeth and mutters that he has no intention of dying, so Feltz might as well stop trying to be funny. He remembers one last desperate move and decides it's now or never. He staggers to his feet and brandishes his dagger defiantly. Amused by his resilience, the captain comments that Adele really does live up to the name Patriarch. In response, Adele sarcastically questions why Feltz is acting so high and mighty, considering it takes a squad of grown men to hunt down a single teenager. He mocks the captain further, suggesting that maybe he should retire and become a nanny. Then he smirks and adds that Feltz would probably need an army for that job too. Irritated by the taunt, Feltz growls that he was going to end things quickly, but now he intends to make it painful. Drawing a sword gifted by Count Leon himself, he vows to teach Adele a lesson. As Feltz charges, Adele sees an opening and whips out the magical paper. The artifact begins to glow as it absorbs the sword, an A-rank weapon, as payment. The system confirms that the item barely meets the price, and then begins displaying the exact location of the gate hidden within the arson forest. Adele smiles faintly. As the captain watches in confusion, his prized sword vanishes into the paper. A radiant light appears in the forest direction. Without hesitation, Adele activates his position transfer skill and vanishes from the spot, reappearing closer to the light. Realizing that Adele is up to something, Captain Feltz yells at him to stop and dashes after him. But Adele doesn't slow down. As he nears the glowing portal, Feltz throws a thick branch like a javelin in a last-ditch effort to stop him. With quick reflexes, Adele dodges the projectile and slips through the gate, just in time. Before disappearing completely, Adele turns around and gives a cheeky wave to Feltz, promising that they'll meet again. Furious and humiliated, Feltz watches helplessly as Adele crosses into the demon realm. Now inside a strange dungeon, we see Adele sitting on a stone tablet, eating while trying to recall how long it has been since he was transferred here. When he passed through the gate, he had found himself inside this dungeon. From its appearance, it seems to be a man-made structure, crafted using some form of magical or architectural arts. He wonders why there's jerky and a stone bed present. Was this place created to guard a treasure or serve another purpose entirely? The dungeon is fortified with a powerful barrier capable of deflecting any blade, and guarded by a fearsome stone sentinel resembling a Fenrir. Adele has no idea which family could have constructed such a place. It's strange no matter how he looks at it. The Guardian, with its monstrous presence, is terrifying. If he were to fight it head-on, he would be annihilated in an instant. Just then, the magical paper glows, delivering a warning. What Adele did earlier, trading an object he didn't possess, was a one-time exception. If he attempts that again, he will face penalties, and there will be no further exchange of information unless the price is legitimately paid. Adele scoffs, thinking the paper's system manager must be insane, but is relieved he's being let off the hook this time. As he surveys the dungeon, something catches his eye, an oddly placed stone embedded in the wall. Curious, he approaches and places his hand on it, thinking that, since he now inhabits Adele's body, he may be attuned to things he previously wasn't. The moment he touches it, a warning echoes in his mind. He does not have the right to use this object. Alarmed by the intensity of the message, Adele immediately withdraws his hand. Judging by the response, he assumes it might be the switch to deactivate the barrier. Since he can't access it, he begins to consider other means of escape. Glancing around, he notices a small stone on the ground. Based on its texture and design, he speculates it may have broken off from the stone guardian. He quickly uses his ability to designate the stone as a target and switches positions with it. He successfully appears inside the barrier while the stone takes his former spot. His plan worked. Before he can celebrate, however, the guardian suddenly appears behind him. It lets out a thunderous roar, startling him completely. The scene transitions to another part of the demon realm. At a noble estate, we witness a scene inside a grand mansion. A maid drops a bucket and is immediately scolded by her superior. Watching the spectacle from the balcony is a noble demon, Greta, the patriarch of the bear's family. He observes the situation with indifference, then quietly returns to his office. Greta reflects on recent events, noting that his daughter is preparing to raid a mid-level hidden domain. Things have been unusually busy around the estate because of it. This raid, if successful, would qualify her to enroll in Saitan, the demon realm's most prestigious academy. Despite his disapproval, Greta knows that she won't heed his warnings. Her motivations are personal. She seeks revenge against the humans who took her mother's life. He sighs, wondering how his delicate daughter will survive in a place filled with ruthless demons. As he contemplates her future, a maid bursts into the room, clearly distressed. Annoyed by her lack of protocol, he glares at her and demands to know what is so urgent that she would dare barge in without permission. Realizing her mistake, the maid quickly bows an apology before reporting that there is an unidentified individual inside the hidden domain. According to their monitoring, no one has officially opened the domain, making the presence of this stranger deeply confusing. Greta narrows his eyes and asks if the intruder's identity has been determined. The maid replies that the person activated a mechanism that can only be triggered from inside the domain, but they have no idea who could have done that. Pondering this, Greta concludes that the most likely explanation is that the intruder was summoned through a war-era gate, a remnant from the great conflict between humans and demons. Assuming the person is a mere human, weak and likely to die soon, Greta casually dismisses the issue. He instructs the maid to focus on preparing his daughter for the raid. Still, a small thought lingers in his mind. If this mysterious guest manages to survive, perhaps he could be more than just a nuisance. He could become a useful pawn in Greta's growing collection. Now back inside the barrier, Adele narrowly escapes being devoured by the wolf-like creature roaming the domain. He realizes just how close he came to death. Even with the barrier still intact, he knows the beast will relentlessly pursue him. Thinking quickly, he recalls that the wolf is made of stone. Inspired, he decides to attempt something new. He designates a transfer point using the stone creature itself. To his surprise, the transfer locks onto the wolf successfully. Instantly, he swaps positions with the beast, placing the wolf inside the barrier and himself outside. The stone wolf, confused and enraged, attacks the barrier, but its efforts are futile as the shield deflects all damage. Adele, knowing the creature will eventually destroy itself trying to escape, takes advantage of the opportunity and runs. Not far ahead, he reaches another barrier. This time, behind it stands a massive, grasshopper-like monster. Noting how the challenges at each level are intensifying, he briefly hesitates. Worried but determined, he repeats the technique, designating and teleporting with the insect-like beast. Once again, the method works, proving his theory. The monsters, although animated, are treated as inanimate objects within this transfer system. After executing a series of similar teleportations, he finally arrives at a grand chamber. From within, a voice echoes, welcoming him for making it this far. Adele freezes, stunned that someone, or something, would acknowledge an intruder so formally. He immediately suspects this is a boss room. Peeking inside cautiously, he sees a Death Knight seated upon a throne. Without hesitation, Adele assesses the knight's strength, estimating it to be at least comparable to Captain Felt's, if not slightly weaker. Before the knight can complete his chivalrous greeting, Adele swiftly activates his ability once more, switching places with the knight on the throne. With this final act, he effectively clears all the rooms in the dungeon, if it can be considered cleared at all. In the room, he finds a loot box containing a black ornament engraved with the image of a dragon. Staring at it, something stirs in his memory. He recalls that the highest-ranking demon families correspond to the 7 deadly sins: sloth, lust, gluttony, wrath, envy, greed. Then it hits him. As evil and prideful as a black dragon. That phrase can only mean one thing. Bears, the 7th sin, pride. Realizing his misfortune, Adele knows that if caught by the bear's family, his life is forfeit. With no time to waste, he grabs the box, hoping it contains something that will help him escape. As he opens it, a strange slime-like creature leaps onto his face, forces its way into his mouth, and releases a bizarre energy. Intense pain surges through him. Moments later, Adele collapses. As Adele pants from exhaustion and pain, he wonders how long he was unconscious and whether his left eye has been injured. He cautiously opens his eyes with trembling hands and is shocked to see a black eye replacing his normal one. Instantly, he recalls the strange liquid that had jumped onto him and hurriedly opens his status window. Within it, a new skill has appeared, Eye of Superbia. The Eye of Superbia grants him exceptional dynamic vision after defeating an enemy. The author, now residing in Adele's body, feels a surge of satisfaction. No longer will he be vulnerable to enemies weaker than him, regardless of what tricks they attempt. He reassures himself that coming to the demon realm was the right decision. Now that he has acquired everything the dungeon had to offer, his next plan is to escape. He turns toward the door, realizing that in all the chaos, he had ignored it. Given the noise he caused and the time he spent unconscious, he suspects that soldiers are already assembled outside. Walking through the door blindly could lead to immediate death. Thus, he begins planning the best course of action, Operation Kneel Faster Than Light. Before exiting, he hides the insignia of the Arson family. Being of half-demon descent, the Arson family is likely viewed as traitors, and bearing their crest might get him killed on sight. Just as he finishes preparing, a knight outside bangs on the door, demanding it be opened for Her Highness. Hearing this, Adele freezes. The reference to royalty makes him think. Perhaps the jerky and bed inside the dungeon weren't left for him after all. Maybe they were intended for participants of a royal trial. Panic rising, he takes out the gift paper, hoping to identify who truly owns the domain. If he has stolen royal property, execution would be a mercy. He asks the paper who is the closest person to him. The system responds that the information has a price. Adele, having nothing else, offers his mana. The system accepts and reveals the name. Renee, the youngest daughter of the patriarch of the Bears family. Immediately, we see Renee approaching the room, taking down the monsters in her way easily. Realizing the domain was set up for her training, Adele understands that the Eye of Superbia was meant to be her reward for clearing it. And now, she, someone powerful enough to slay every beast in the domain, is coming straight for him. As she reaches the final chamber, she defeats the Guardian Knight with a single blow and steps inside. She finds Adele waiting and points her sword at him, demanding to know who he is. Without hesitation, Adele drops to one knee and congratulates her on completing the domain. Suspicious and angry, Renee commands him to explain himself. Adele fabricates a story, claiming that the patriarch sent him as her guardian. He notes that although their eyes met, she didn't recognize the Eye of Superbia, a small blessing. Renee pauses, considering his words. Adele continues, saying he may not look like much, but he is quite skilled. His plan is to leave the dungeon alongside her. Renee lowers her sword slightly, looking down at him. Concerned that she may not trust him, Adele decides to prove his abilities. He uses his position transferability, switching places with his sword to appear directly in front of her. Shocked by his sudden movement, Renee instinctively reacts as Adele grabs her wrist. Trying to win her over, Adele says, "How's that? I told you I'd be useful in protecting you." But Renee, clearly irritated, pushes Adele's hand away and turns her gaze elsewhere. Adele breathes a sigh of relief. She's choosing to ignore his behavior rather than escalate. He quickly asks if they should head out, suggesting that they report to the patriarch right away. He also claims he must leave soon to fulfill other tasks he's been assigned. In truth, he's thinking only about escape. He plans to flee the moment they're out of the dungeon, assuring her he'll return on time. However, Adele once again repeats the same mistake he made during his battle with the Stone Wolf, talking too much without checking his surroundings. This time, it's not a wolf waiting outside the door, but someone infinitely more dangerous. Standing at the entrance is none other than the patriarch of the House of Pride himself, Greta Bears. Even Renee is visibly shaken at the sight of her father. Adele turns pale as he realizes who he's just been bluffing his way past. Bears is astonished by the developments unfolding before him, while Adele, realizing that Bears is none other than Renee's father, feels a deep fear rise within him. He believes Bears will kill him the moment he discovers that he possesses the Eye of Superbia. Yet, to his surprise, Bears remains still. Adele wonders why he hasn't taken any action yet. Bears calmly asks his daughter if she successfully cleared the domain. Overwhelmed in her father's presence, Renee nods and replies affirmatively. Satisfied with her answer, Bears instructs both of them to follow him. Adele, still on edge and unsure of Bears' intentions, obeys but subtly scans his surroundings for any possible escape route. Deep down, he knows evading them is next to impossible. With nothing left to offer the gift paper and no tools at his disposal, he has run out of options. He follows them back to the mansion silently. Upon arrival, Bears orders all soldiers to return to their quarters. The troops bow respectfully and promptly follow his command. Bears then instructs Adele to wait outside, saying he will be summoned shortly. For a moment, Adele wonders if this might be a chance to flee, but he quickly notices hidden guards watching him closely from the shadows. Escape is clearly not an option. Inside Bear's office, he informs Renee that she has completed the final task assigned to her. He asks if she still insists on entering the training facility. Without hesitation, Renee replies that she must, no matter the cost. Bears leans back for a moment before asking her opinion about him. Renee thinks back to Adele's quick movements and confidently states, "He is strong." Intrigued by her words, Bears rises from his seat and tells her that, having completed all tasks, she is now officially permitted to enroll in the Demon Academy Saitan. Overjoyed, Renee thanks her father sincerely. Meanwhile, Bears privately reflects that, although he thought Adele would die in the domain, not only did he survive, but he also claimed the Eye of Superbia. With even Renee vouching for him, Bears concludes that Adele might be a useful pawn after all. Outside, Adele continues to wait, quiet, alert, and ready. Adele is escorted into the estate by a demon guard. Upon reaching the Patriarch's office, the guard announces that he has brought Adele. Bears, seated imposingly behind his desk, glares at him with a menacing expression. Adele, nervous but composed, wonders what the Patriarch might be thinking. Gathering his courage, he asks why he was allowed to live. In response, Bears intensifies his aura, overwhelming the room, and remarks coldly that Adele has done a good job fooling his daughter. The pressure from Bear's aura forces Adele to his knees, but he manages to speak through the strain, declaring that Bears has no intention of killing him. Amused, Bears smirks and withdraws his aura. As Adele slowly regains his footing, Bears compliments his quick wit and then asks for his name. Adele provides it, deliberately omitting his family name. Without warning, Bears uses magic to levitate Adele and place him on the desk in front of him. Startled, Adele asks what Bears intends to do with him. Bears instructs him to open his mouth. A small, shadowy dragon, resembling the slime from earlier, emerges from Bear's chest. He tells Adele that he will do the same as he told his daughter, serve as her guardian. The shadow dragon slithers into Adele's mouth. As it enters, Bears warns him that if he harbors any betrayal, the creature, infused with deadly poison, will kill him instantly. With that, Bears turns and exits the room, stating that preparations for Adele's quarters will begin soon and he should wait until summoned. Adele, coughing violently, finally stabilizes. Bears permits him to leave, and Adele departs, still recovering from the ordeal. A soldier leads Adele to his quarters. As they walk, Adele reflects on how quickly he has become part of the household, solely by Greta's will. Though grateful for being deemed useful, he suspects he's merely a pawn. Still, being acknowledged by such a powerful demon might be beneficial. Adele shifts his focus to the immediate concern, removing the poison inside him. Using his ability, he targets his heart, and it works. The dragon slips out, having been embedded near his core. He shudders at the thought of what might have happened if he'd misjudged the spell and removed his actual heart. He decides not to kill the dragon, realizing Greta would likely sense its death. The creature stirs, waking from the sudden loss of mana. Quickly, Adele feeds it a bit of his energy, lulling it back to sleep. Exhausted, Adele opens his status window. His position transfer skill has leveled up, but the increased mana cost worries him. Due to the suppression placed on him, his total mana pool is now minuscule. As he considers how to expand it, he recalls a method that might work. The next scene shifts to Renee, clearly displeased, while Adele is deep in thought. It's the third day of his service as her guardian. Despite their time together, she remains cold and distant. As the author of her story, Adele understands why. Her mother had been slain by humans. Once a bright and cheerful child, Renee had since become hardened and withdrawn. Even Adele, despite writing her backstory himself, can't help but feel sympathy for her. While they are strolling through the estate grounds, a guard approaches and informs them that the Patriarch has summoned them to his office. As they walk, Adele suspects the meeting will involve Renee's potential admission into Saitan, the Demon Realm's elite academy. Although she earned the right to attend by clearing the domain, her father may still refuse. Inside the office, Bears tells Renee that Saitan Academia is no ordinary place. It is a battlefield. With her current abilities, she wouldn't last long, let alone achieve the revenge she seeks for her mother. Renee clenches her fists, visibly frustrated, and Adele feels awkward, sensing that this is a personal family matter. Then Bears adds one condition. If Renee takes Adele with her as her guardian, he will grant her permission to attend. Hearing this surprises both of them, and Renee immediately rejects the idea. Her strong denial stings Adele slightly, as it confirms just how much she despises him. Adele knows that Saitan is a demonic academy where children with exceptional potential from across the realm are trained. The school is in constant rivalry with the Imperial Academy attended by the human protagonist, and in that setting, many students, including Renee, are destined to die. It's a place where one's life is always on the line. Adele wonders why she's so obsessed with attending. If he were in her position, he certainly wouldn't be. Then, abruptly, he changes his perspective, realizing that Saitan might be the perfect ground for him to gather strength and allies. Since he knows most of the major events that will occur between the two academies, he decides to use this opportunity to negotiate with Greta. Adele speaks up, stating that he has a request of his own. Bears looks at him intently, and Adele thinks to himself that since he's being dragged into this anyway, he might as well get something out of it. He requests something related to mana. Greta smirks and says he expected Adele to ask for that. Adele feels a small sense of relief, as it seems Bears hasn't yet realized that he already removed the poison dragon from his body. Renee watches silently, trying to understand the nature of their exchange. Accustomed to strange requests, Bears says it's not a big deal for him, so he's willing to listen. He then instructs Renee to leave the room. As she exits, she shoots Adele a piercing glare. Adele wonders again why she hates him so much. Even the idea of accompanying her seems to infuriate her. Once she's gone, Adele starts considering his options. A mana elixir or an artifact would be ideal. But Bears interrupts, stating that there is a particular treasure that only family members are sensitive to, which is why he had to send his daughter away. Adele is surprised by this. Bears then says he already knows that Adele's mana reserves are abnormally low, since he will be risking his life in his daughter's place. This is something he must offer in return. He calls Adele forward, stating he will now transfer the Bears family's mana cultivation technique into him. The creator within Adele is stunned by the mention of a cultivation technique. Greta begins chanting an incantation, invoking the demon god of pride. His words seem to directly request the god to guide his servant, not to test him with destruction, but to offer trials that will allow him to grow. If he succeeds, Greta prays that the name of the god will be glorified even further. After the spell is cast, a violet aura engulfs Adele as he pants, struggling to stabilize himself. Bears observes him carefully and comments that most people would lose their sanity just by hearing that specific enchantment, yet Adele remains composed. This only makes Bears more intrigued. He explains that the cultivation technique now implanted within Adele will allow him to connect directly with the demon god, enabling him to receive mana from the deity himself. This will resolve the problem of Adele's slow and limited mana regeneration. Shocked at the source of his new power, Adele begins to ponder its implications. Before he can gather his thoughts, Bears remarks that Adele's bloodline seems to resonate with the essence of the 7 deadly sins, something even he did not expect. However, Bears adds that origin doesn't matter, nor does it concern him whether Adele is a spy or not, since the poison worm embedded inside him will ensure his loyalty. He smiles victoriously as he says this. Hearing about his potential connection to one of the elite demon families, Adele grows uneasy. As the creator, he doesn't recall writing any such background for the original Adele. If this truly is part of the past, it must have been hidden or overlooked. With that, he is dismissed from the room and quietly leaves. Later, in a secluded part of the forest, Adele sits on a large stone and begins to meditate. He chooses this isolated spot to train, fearing that an unstable mana flow could harm others nearby. As he meditates, dark energy begins to envelop his body. He initiates a chant to connect with the demon god. Though he knows that doing so will sever his link to human mana and transform his core into one aligned with demonic power, he sees no other path forward. Given his current situation and the trials ahead, he has little choice. He succeeds in summoning the demon god's consciousness, but the god immediately refers to Adele as a mongrel, catching him off guard. The god continues analyzing Adele's bloodline, and concludes that he doesn't carry the lineage the god anticipated. Instead, he senses the taint of a traitor. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Adele gathers the courage to ask if he is truly in the presence of the demon god. The being responds that he is, indeed, the one known outside this realm as the god of pride. Shrouded in crackling energy, Adele asks whether the god intends to kill him. The god of pride answers that if that were his intention, Adele would already be dead. For reasons even he cannot explain, he feels a sense of kinship with Adele. The god notes that Adele bears the same scent of sin, the same corrupted essence. With that, the god of pride decides to bestow Adele with a mark, symbolizing the path he is about to walk. A glowing symbol begins to form on Adele's hand, expanding slowly across his body. The god informs him that this mark signifies permission to use divine magic and power, but warns him not to lose his composure in the face of pride. Realizing he has earned the favor of a god, Adele feels as though he's been granted 3 extra lives. The mark, which will soon spread over his entire body like a tattoo, fills him with excitement, until he senses someone watching him. Turning quickly, he is stunned to find Renee standing behind a tree, her expression filled with surprise. Panic rises in Adele's chest. Did she overhear the conversation? Did she catch the part about his traitor bloodline? Before he can speak, Renee calls him a dark priest. Her words confuse him. Why would she label him that? A month passes. Since receiving the status upgrade and the mana cultivation technique, Adele's strength has increased dramatically. His mana reserves have quadrupled, exceeding his expectations. He credits the growth not just to the blessing, but also to his improved skills and training. He now believes he may soon surpass even the heirs of the 6 houses. Confident in his progress, he sets his sights on conquering a particular hidden domain. Yet one issue persists, Renee. Despite the mansion having proper training grounds, she now insists on training directly in front of his house. Each day, she appears and practices within his line of sight. One morning, he calls out to her politely, addressing her as Miss Renee. To his surprise, she responds in a calm and respectful tone, acknowledging him without hostility. This change in behavior, while subtle, brings Adele a small measure of happiness. It's a refreshing contrast to the cold indifference she once showed. Still, it's clear she misunderstands him. She continues to believe he's a priest of some kind, likely due to the mark and aura surrounding him. Thinking about it, Adele realizes he can't really blame Renee. After all, in this realm, those who can communicate with the Dark Lord are often referred to as priests. As Renee continues to glance at him anxiously, he feels relieved that she didn't overhear the conversation between him and the demon god. Still, if she keeps treating him with such deference, rumors may begin to spread within the household. With that in mind, Adele tells Renee that he understands what she's thinking, but requests that she treat him the same way she used to. Renee hesitates, conflicted, as doing so now could be seen as disrespectful. But before she can respond, Adele adds that he's only following family orders to protect her, and that she should act in whatever way feels most natural to her. Hearing this, Renee shifts gears almost instantly, and, in a commanding tone, orders Adele to fetch her some water. Adele, caught off guard by the sudden change in her demeanor, is momentarily stunned. Renee smirks and reminds him that he's the one who requested to be treated normally, and now, after all her training, she's thirsty. Amused by how effortlessly her tone shifted, Adele realizes he has walked himself into this situation. Accepting it with a sigh, he goes to get her some water. Now, as Adele performs all of Renee's basic tasks, he begins thinking about his true goal, conquering the hidden domain. However, sneaking out has proven impossible with Renee constantly around. He knows time is running out. Once the main character crosses into this realm, things will no longer go smoothly for him. And the treasure he seeks is essential if he hopes to survive at Saidan, the School of Demons. He calls out to Renee and casually asks if there's anything she might have forgotten or overlooked in her preparations. Renee, puzzled by the sudden question, asks why he's bringing it up so randomly. Adele dodges the intent by claiming he's just concerned, as she'll be facing many humans at the academy. Renee replies that she already has everything packed and prepared. Still, Adele insists she double-check, claiming it would be unfortunate if she forgot something important. Becoming suspicious, Renee narrows her eyes and asks him bluntly what he's trying to say. She tells him to get to the point already. Trying to bluff his way out, Adele replies that he's merely worried about her as her escort. Renee doesn't buy it. She calls him a liar and directly asks what he's planning to do behind her back. Realizing that she sees through his excuses and is beginning to grow irritated, Adele finally gives up. He admits that there's a domain nearby that interests him, and he wants to conquer it. He tries to justify the endeavor by saying it would ultimately be for her safety as well. Renee remains silent, thinking it over, while Adele silently prays that she will allow him to go. After a brief pause, Renee suddenly says that she just remembered something she forgot. Seeing the opportunity, Adele urges her to return and retrieve it, but before he can finish, Renee coolly states, "I forgot to warm up." Her response leaves Adele completely confused. When he asks what she means, Renee slides her sword back into its sheath and looks at him with calm determination. She tells him that she'll be joining him on his raid into the domain and that they can clear it together in one day if it's close by. Her declaration catches Adele entirely off guard. Before he can even try to talk her out of it, Renee demands that he lead the way. With no room left to protest, Adele finally tells her that the domain they're heading toward is none other than the domain of the undead. The domain of the undead, once ruled by a powerful necromancer, had long been abandoned and forgotten, left to decay after the necromancers were eradicated in the war between humans and demons. Over time, it became overrun by wraithified soldiers, remnants of ancient magic left to fester. Upon hearing the name, Renee comments that even she is familiar with that domain. Adele studies her reaction, noting the tension in her voice and the unease on her face. From her unsettled expression, he estimates that the domain must now be classified as at least a mid to upper level zone. The number of undead soldiers likely grew during the years of neglect, making it a much more dangerous place than it once was. Time is short, and Adele knows that tackling the domain alone would be inefficient. He realizes that bringing Renee along could increase his chances of success. However, there's one major problem. Sneaking out of the mansion together would be a significant risk. If they're caught, Greta will personally deal with the consequences. Weighing the danger, Adele tells Renee that if it's too much for her at her current level, she should stay back. He warns her that if the head of the house finds out, he won't show mercy. In response, Renee smirks and tells him to follow her, revealing that she knows a secret way out. At one of the outer gates of the estate, there's a hole in the wall, just large enough for someone to slip through. It's a hidden escape route known only to a few. Adele, mildly surprised, comments on how familiar she seems with the area. Renee ignores the remark, giving him no explanation. From her silence, Adele guesses that she's had plenty of practice sneaking out before. With that, they both slip out of the mansion, heading straight for the domain. Traversing a mountain range on foot, both begin to show signs of fatigue. Adele finally asks how far they have left to go. Renee appears surprised. She assumed Adele already knew the way. Thinking quickly, Adele explains that he never had a reason to leave the estate before, so he's unfamiliar with the surrounding terrain. His answer seems to satisfy her, masking the fact that he's not actually from this realm. Renee assures him they're nearly there. Eventually, stepping over broken stone and debris from ruined structures, Adele declares that they've arrived. The area is nothing but rubble. Surveying the destruction, Renee curses in her own demonic dialect. Her reaction reminds him that he must keep his arson bloodline a secret at all costs. Recalling his own knowledge of the story he once wrote, Adele subtly hints that there might be an entrance beneath the ruins. Beneath a crumbling statue of a long-dead soldier lies the hidden entryway. Underneath it is a stairway. Spotting it, Renee steps forward to take the lead, naturally falling into her role as the primary attacker. As they descend the staircase, dim magical lights begin to flicker to life along the walls, illuminating the path downward. After a short descent, they reach the heart of the domain, a massive, decaying mansion. The atmosphere is far darker than the previous domain they'd explored in the bear's estate. Drawing their weapons, he and Renee steel themselves as they step into the battlefield. The moment they cross the threshold, undead soldiers begin clawing their way out of the ground, one after another. In mere seconds, Adele and Renee are completely surrounded. Calm under pressure, Adele calls out, "I'll leave the rear to you." And Renee responds without hesitation. Enchanting her blade with mana, she charges forward and takes down dozens of undead with a single strike. Watching her fight with ruthless efficiency, Adele feels reassured. Bringing her was the right call. While keeping the undead at bay, he searches for the necromancer, knowing that the caster is likely hiding at the back of the horde. As he fights, he studies Renee's raw strength and resolve, silently promising himself to catch up to her one day. As the battle rages, the tide seems to turn in their favor. The number of enemies dwindles, and both begin to gain ground. But just when victory seems close, the defeated undead begin to rise again. Caught off guard, Renee falters slightly. Suddenly, a deep, chilling voice breaks through the chaos. "How bold of you to come here without fear." One of the undead steps forward, not just another risen soldier, but the necromancer himself, cloaked in shadow and exuding a suffocating aura. He lifts his hand, commanding the undead army with a single gesture. Realizing the true threat has emerged, Adele immediately rushes toward Renee. "They're coming back again," she calls out as more undead claw their way out of the soil. The necromancer's voice echoes once more, ordering his forces to kill the intruders. Adele informs Renee that the continuous revival of the undead is due to the necromancer, and the best course of action is to fight and push forward without stopping. Renee is momentarily surprised by the brute force approach, as Adele takes down one of the undead. He reassures her that he has a better plan to deal with the horde more efficiently. Trusting in Adele's confidence, Renee charges up and begins rushing toward the necromancer. As the undead soldiers try to block their advance, Adele focuses on closing the distance between them and the necromancer. He knows that the best way to end this is by destroying the magical orb the necromancer is holding. As he prepares to use his transfer ability, recently enhanced through training, a towering skeletal warrior appears in Renee's path. For a moment, Adele grows concerned, but Renee effortlessly slays the giant in a single strike, clearing the way, and Adele sees an opportunity. Locking onto one of the airborne fragments, he uses his upgraded skill to transfer positions with it, instantly appearing within range of the necromancer. Without hesitation, he activates his refined transfer technique, swapping the orb from the necromancer's grasp into his own. Before the necromancer can react, Adele crushes the orb, destroying its core. The moment it shatters, the necromancer collapses, signaling the fall of the domain. Adele announces their victory, declaring the domain officially conquered. As they begin to celebrate, the necromancer, fading away, thanks Adele for freeing him from his torment. Remembering that this tragedy unfolded due to the very story he wrote, Adele feels a pang of guilt. He silently wishes peace for the souls who suffered here. Just as he is lost in thought, Renee calls out to him and asks if there's anything left to do. Snapping back to reality, Adele responds that all that remains is to collect the rewards left within the domain. As he turns to the treasure chest, Adele can't help but feel a surge of excitement. He's finally about to obtain the item he came for. Fong of Darkness, a dagger forged from dark steel in the demon realm, converts darkness into mana, enhancing both sharpness and speed in low-light environments. Alongside it lies the Eternal Full Moon, a ring-type artifact that enhances mana sensitivity and absorbs moonlight to amplify magical control. Adele picks up the dagger, knowing it will allow him to fully maximize his traits aligned with darkness. As for the ring, he considers it unnecessary for the time being, so he decides to offer it to Renee. He asks her if he may keep the dagger in exchange for giving her the ring. Renee agrees with a soft smile, sealing the deal. Without thinking much of it, Adele gently takes her hand and slips the ring onto her index finger. Renee blushes, visibly surprised, though Adele doesn't quite understand her reaction. He casually dismisses it, thinking it might be some demon world custom he's unfamiliar with. Perhaps placing rings on fingers carries symbolic meaning. Adele asks Renee how the ring feels. Still slightly flustered, she doesn't respond right away. But as the artifact's effects begin to activate, she starts to feel a surge of clarity and control. She looks at the ring, clearly impressed. Seeing her pleased, Adele is glad it suits her. Caught in the moment, he then tries to sneak all the gold from the domain, claiming it as a just reward for defeating the boss. However, before he can finish hoarding it, Renee's sword is suddenly at his neck. Calmly, she tells him the treasure will be split evenly, down to the last coin. After cleaning up the domain, the two return to the estate. They arrive before dinner and manage to squeeze in some mana training. Adele even runs a few errands for Renee. Another month passes in the blink of an eye. During that time, Adele makes significant progress. His mana capacity now ranks at the mid-tier level within the realm. A few days later, Greta summons both of them. It is time to depart for the Sighten Demon School. Adele mentally prepares himself. It's finally happening. According to the plan, they'll first head to the capital and take the entrance exam required for academy admission. Greta asks if all preparations have been made. Adele confirms that everything is ready. Greta instructs them to leave, stating that he doesn't believe in sentimental farewells. Renee simply bows and walks out, while Adele follows, casually saying he'll be accompanying Miss now. To his surprise, Greta calls out to him one last time. "I hope you'll do well," he says. Adele pauses, offers a grateful smile, and then exits. As the carriage departs, Adele happens to glance back at the estate and notices Greta watching them from a window. He realizes that the patriarch's earlier coldness was only an act. Despite his rough demeanor, even a demon can have soft feelings for his child. Comforted by the warmth of that moment, Adele steels his resolve. He must achieve his goals, no matter what lies ahead. The journey is long and bumpy. Along the way, Adele notices that Renee hasn't said a single word since they left the mansion. He begins to wonder if he did or said something wrong. As he turns to glance at her, Renee suddenly meets his gaze. Calmly, she tells him that at first, she really disliked him. He always seemed suspicious and strange. But now, she thinks he's starting to look a little better. Adele, confused by the sudden openness, awkwardly tries to change the topic. Judging from his reaction, Renee quietly concludes that neither his words nor actions carry much weight. He doesn't seem particularly strong either. She silently questions whether he truly is a priest. Adele, meanwhile, grows increasingly anxious under her silent stare. Why is she looking at him like that without saying anything? For now, Renee dismisses the priest theory. After all, she saw him communicate with the demon god directly. There's no need to overthink it further. Her gaze falls upon the ring on her finger, the one Adele gave her in the domain. She blushes again. In the demon realm, that specific act carries weight. When someone of the opposite gender places a ring on another's finger, it's known as an eternal vow. It symbolizes a bond, one that isn't easily broken. The only thing that puzzles her is that Adele never said anything when he did it. What kind of vow had he made? She wants to ask, but her pride keeps her silent. Lost in thought, she snapped back to reality when Adele informs her that they'll be arriving an hour earlier than expected. She quickly turns her face away. Concerned, Adele asks if he's done something wrong. Renee cuts him off curtly, saying, "I'll be taking a quick nap." Finally arriving at the capital city of the demon realm, Adele takes in the sights with wide eyes. As it's his first time in a demon city, he instinctively compares it to human settlements. The most striking difference is the diversity of races living openly here. Demons of all kinds roam the streets, some with horns, wings, or other distinct physical traits, while the elites are easily identifiable by the intricate tattoos etched into their skin. As Adele gazes around in fascination, Renee urges him to pick up the pace. While walking, Adele asks about their destination. Renee informs him that the entrance exam will take place in a few days, but they need to register for it in advance. Adele suggests that they explore the city together since they have some free time, but Renee promptly declines, saying she has no interest in sightseeing. Feeling slightly rejected, Adele falls silent. When he tries to continue the conversation, Renee quickly shuts him down, insisting that they focus on registration first. Adele reflects that, according to her story, Renee hasn't left the estate much since her mother's death. He had hoped she might welcome the chance to experience the city, but it seems she's not ready. When they arrive at the gates of Sighten Institute, Adele is stunned by its sheer scale. To him, it looks at least 3 times larger than any human university. At the registration table, an administrator finishes with the person ahead of them and calls for the next in line. As Adele steps forward and makes his request to register, the staff member immediately eyes him suspiciously and demands to know what he is, noting that he doesn't look like a demon. His tone quickly turns hostile. He accuses Adele of mocking the institution by applying as a half-breed, even going so far as to shout that while demons may have lost the war, that doesn't make this place a joke. Seeing the hostility in the man's expression and the murmurs around the room, Adele realizes that his path forward is going to come with more trials than he had anticipated. The receptionist at the exam entry desk begins arguing with Adele, blaming his kind for the demon's loss in the war. Just as the situation is about to escalate, Renee steps forward and demands to know what's going on. The receptionist catches sight of her horns and instantly recognizes her as one of the heirs of the House of the Seven Deadly Sins. His tone shifts immediately, and he asks for her details for the examination. Renee calmly states her house and family name, adding that Adele is her personal guard and will be entering the exam alongside her. Upon hearing this, the receptionist begins noting their information, but not without a mocking remark. He snidely comments that the elite House of the Seven Deadly Sins must be in decline if they're accepting low-blooded half-breeds into their ranks. That comment finally pushes Renee past her limit. Her eyes flare with anger as she issues a chilling threat. If he continues to insult the House of Bears, she will teach him a lesson. Realizing he's one step away from a life-and-death situation, the receptionist quickly backtracks, insisting that the Institute does not discriminate between races. He nervously encourages Renee to overlook his earlier remarks. He then asks Adele for his name and family background. Adele calmly replies that he's from the House of Pixie. With their registration complete, the receptionist tells them to return in a couple of days when the entrance exam will be held. As they walk away, Adele reflects on the hostility he faced. During the war, many half-demons had powerful abilities and ultimately sided with the humans. Because of that, they're now viewed as traitors by many in the demon realm. Though irritated, Adele suppresses his frustration and leaves quietly with Renee, who is still clearly annoyed by the receptionist's behavior. After a short walk, they arrive in front of a tavern that appears cleaner than most. Renee glances at it and remarks that the local taverns look much older than they should. Though she doesn't say much, her expression speaks volumes. Sensing her discomfort, Adele gently reassures her, noting that they'll have to make do with limited funds. They were given 10 gold coins by the Bears family, which won't last more than a month for both of them. Knowing that the family has been struggling financially since the war, Adele doesn't even consider asking for more. Turning to Renee, he suggests they check in. At the tavern's reception desk, Adele asks the innkeeper if there are rooms available for 2 people for the next 2 days. Renee remains silent, looking off to the side as the discussion unfolds. The receptionist nods and confirms that rooms are available, then casually asks if the 2 of them would like to share a room, as the guest before them had done. The question flusters Renee immediately. Her face turns red. Before she can say anything, Adele quickly responds, requesting 2 separate rooms. The receptionist hands Adele the keys and informs him that the cost for 2 rooms, including food, will be 2 gold coins for 2 nights. As Adele pays, he mentally converts the price into his home country's currency, roughly 200,000 won. To him, it's a fair deal. Renee heads upstairs to rest, and Adele calls after her, wishing her a good night and promising to bring their luggage up shortly. She nods and tells him to rest as well before disappearing up the stairs. Adele thinks to himself that, having grown up in a grand mansion, this might be Renee's first time sleeping in a place like this. He hopes she adjusts quickly. With that, he also prepares to rest until the exam day arrives. When the day comes, applicants begin gathering at the gates of Saitan. Guards loudly direct them to follow the rules and head toward their designated areas. As Adele and Renee approach their assigned section, Adele scans the surroundings and is surprised by the sheer number of participants. He estimates over 100. It's a reminder of how many in the demon realm are determined to rise against humans, and a warning for him to keep his identity well hidden. Once inside a large hall, an announcement echoes throughout the room. All applicants are instructed to collect their IDs and board the trains in the order provided. Adele is taken aback. They're being transported elsewhere for the exam. Outside, a long train awaits them, looking like something out of an era when steam engines ruled. Stunned, Adele boards alongside Renee. It's explained that this train is connected to a maze-like dimensional gate system, designed specifically to prevent outsiders from reaching the school. Only through this train can one arrive at Saitan. Adele, still processing everything, is shocked to learn that the massive building they had seen before was merely an outer facility. The Real Academy lies far beyond. As the train lurches into motion, he can't help but wonder just how vast and powerful the true Saitan Academy must be. An announcement echoes through the train, informing passengers that arrival is imminent and advising them to brace for impact. Moments later, the train screeches to a sudden halt. Adele peers out the window, and, judging by the majestic view before him, he knows they've arrived at the right place. As everyone disembarks, guards instruct them to follow in an orderly manner toward the examination auditorium. Upon entering, Adele finds the massive hall overwhelming. The size, the energy, the presence of so many candidates. With a quick scan, he notices that most of the examinees are young demons. He wonders if any heirs from the elite houses of the 7 deadly sins are present among them. While lost in thought, a group of imposing demons enters. Their powerful presence and disciplined aura make it clear they are the instructors. Observing them, Adele concludes that making a strong impression during the test could ease his future at the academy. As he considers his strategy, a loud, clock-like chime rings through the auditorium, signaling the start of the exam. The doors shut behind them with a heavy thud, locking everyone inside. The bright hall is suddenly plunged into darkness. Adele notes that it was daylight outside, so the darkness must be caused by some magical effect. It leaves him anxious about what kind of test is about to begin. As whispers and murmurs fill the room, a commanding voice cuts through the chaos, silencing everyone instantly. It belongs to a small, childlike demon girl. Despite her appearance, the intricate tattoos etched across her neck and body reveal her immense power. With mana swirling around her like wind, she addresses the room full of what she calls brainless and idiotic fools and welcomes them to Saitan. She declares that she's eager to see how many of them are ready to die this year. The sheer weight of her mana causes Adele to struggle for breath. As he instinctively moves to shield Renee, she tells him to focus on the test. His survival should be the priority. Within seconds, the pressure intensifies. Students begin choking, collapsing one after another under the unbearable stress. The instructors exchange glances, remarking on the headmaster's twisted approach, but they acknowledge its importance. This is the mental endurance test, and it is designed to determine which students can withstand psychological interrogation and torture, especially in the event of capture by humans. Physical strength is useless without mental resilience. The test is led by none other than Headmaster Lucien herself. After 5 grueling minutes, most of the candidates have fallen. Only 8 remain standing. The instructors comment that while the overall number of applicants has risen, they didn't expect this many to endure. Still, the percentage of survivors has improved by 40% compared to the previous year, an encouraging sign. Among the remaining candidates are the heirs of the 7 deadly sins, just as expected. But what catches the instructor's attention is Adele, a nameless candidate not from any known noble family. Yet, he's still standing. Just as they assume he's about to collapse, they notice something strange. Adele begins to radiate a menacing aura, his presence turning dark and sharp. A wave of killing intent floods the room, shocking even the headmaster and instructors. They had underestimated him. One instructor immediately labels him a threat and considers eliminating him on the spot. Now, from the instructor's point of view, when the test was in session and the candidates were almost down, he, the instructor, was observing how Adele was also about to collapse, as he was out of breath. Instructor Aries initially thought Adele was not someone special, but in the next moment, the atmosphere around him began to shift, as if the very air had turned into something else entirely. It resembled the chilling aura present, an emotionless killing intent. Aries notes that this sudden transformation in Adele drew the attention of every instructor, but he himself instinctively reached for his sword without understanding why. The headmaster also turned her gaze toward Adele as she continued to emit mana. Aries found himself nervous in front of a mere applicant, while the instructors beside him smiled, amused by his terrified expression. Now, from Adele's point of view, when he was on the verge of collapse due to the sheer density of mana, he thought of countering it. He concluded that releasing his killing intent might be enough to break through the oppressive field. With no other options, he activated his skill to negate the headmaster's mana. The headmaster found this amusing. Watching Adele withstand the pressure, she informed him that she would increase the mana density further. In response, Adele intensified his own aura and wrapped himself in a mana field that managed to nullify the headmaster's energy, an act that surprised the headmaster. Now with a pocket of breathable space around him, Adele looked around and noticed that Renee was still standing despite everything. Other heirs of the 7 deadly sins also held their ground. The heir of envy, Baltan, the heir of lust, Prone, the heir of gluttony, Samuel, and the heirs of sloth and greed as well. Reflecting on the initial strength and backstories of these characters, the author inside Adele knew most were written with great care and affection, yet all were doomed to fall at the hands of the main character's party. 6 of the heirs, including Renee, would be defeated. Suddenly, Adele noticed a familiar figure in the test hall, long white hair, red eyes, and a crown of brown thorns. Even Adele recognized her immediately as the future Demon Lord, Diana, the heir of Wrath. The Demon Kings usually hail from the Wrath lineage, but Adele couldn't understand why she would be here as an applicant. A successor of the Demon Lord appearing at sight and didn't make sense to him. He wondered if there were events in motion that he wasn't yet aware of. While contemplating this, a commotion arose at Ares' side, where some applicants protested the extremity of the test, claiming it was unbearable. A few spoiled nobles began threatening the instructor using their family names, but Ares silenced them by grabbing one protester's hand, firmly stating he didn't care about their lineage. Dominating the environment, he declared that only those who had endured the full 5 minutes had passed the initial test, and all remaining participants were now dismissed. With that, the gates were closed, and the failed applicants were escorted out. Adele observed the institute's harshness and felt relieved he had passed. As the tension eased, he finally recognized the headmaster. Despite her cute appearance, she was one of the strongest in the demon realm, Lugian. Realizing her true nature, he remained alert, knowing he could still fail at any moment and that the second test would be even more merciless. Now the crowd seems to be gathering around Renee, as she is one of the heirs of the 7 deadly sins. Adele notices how popular she appears to be. In the area, all the heirs of the 7 families are surrounded by admirers due to their personalities, and because they successfully passed the test until the end. However, for Adele, who also withstood the test, people do not seem to be paying any attention to him at all, which makes him feel a little bit sad. Renee approaches him and asks if he also passed the test, to which he replies that he was successful. Considering the trials and his performance during the test, Adele is certain that the teachers and the headmaster will remember him and keep him in mind separately. He wonders whether the impression he left was strong enough. Now Ares asks for the applicant's attention and introduces himself, stating that he will be in charge of teaching in the near future. Adele feels like Ares might be carrying knives and other weapons in his pockets, and he realizes he is not the only one thinking that. Ares congratulates the candidates on passing the first test, which was a test of mental strength. Ares explains that the purpose of the test was to determine whether they could keep their secrets if captured and tortured by humans in the future. He adds that the students who endured until the end will receive extra points, and if they perform well in the upcoming test, they will be granted access to the weaponry. Adele becomes very happy that he lasted until the end, knowing that the inventory contains treasures that are both useful and rare to obtain. As he celebrates his internal victory, he can feel the envy from the other applicants. Following the announcement, Ares begins to explain the second test. He states that it is a combat test in which the applicants will display their prowess against humans, and that their class assignment will depend on the outcome, making it a significant event. Adele starts to wonder about the kind of situation they are about to face and which human they will be fighting. Ares then announces the assignment and activates his magic to summon the test subject they are about to confront. With a bright flash and a roaring gust, a human warrior appears, holding his sword firmly. With just one glance, Adele becomes tense as he instantly recognizes the man who has been summoned. It is none other than the strongest hero among the 6 families, Cell. Adele gets on edge and starts to wonder why he is even there in the first place, as it does not make any sense to him. Renee asks Adele if he knows that particular human. The human present is the head of House 90, a character who is very close to the main protagonist in the original story. Saying close would not suffice if one considers that he is actually related by blood to the main protagonist of the novel. He is the father of the main protagonist, the sword saint who created the House of 90 with his talent alone. Other applicants start to panic as they also seem to recognize the sword saint. Adele had predicted that he would be famous in the demon world, as Cell had defeated quite a few demon houses himself. Observing the uneasiness of the applicants, Ares clarifies that they are not expected to stand a chance against the Sword Saint's full power, so to make things fair, he will be using only 1/10 of his original strength. The comment by Ares seems to ease some of the applicants, and noticing the relaxed atmosphere, Renee questions whether 10% is too easy. Adele dispels the delusion, stating that a monster is still a monster, even while holding back his power. Adele knows that the so-called 10% is more than enough to reduce an entire city to ashes. He also knows that the instructors are well aware of this, so he wonders what the true purpose of the test is for the candidates. Adele tries to think if there is any particular criterion or standard for passing the test. He wants to use the scroll for information, but his money is limited and the number of questions it can answer seems to have a cap as well. As Adele contemplates the criteria, Ares announces that no applicant can take on the Sword Saint alone, so they will be split into teams of 4 and face him in groups. The top 8 applicants will be assigned to different teams to maintain fairness, and the rest will be assigned randomly. Adele counts that the top 8 include the 7 heirs of the 7 deadly sins and himself. People begin to look at the heirs with admiration and respect, and once again, he receives those same stares, but Adele has grown used to them by now. As Adele continues to think, Renee approaches him and presses against his arm. She wishes him luck and asks him to come back safely, to which Adele returns the wish. After this, Ares begins to form the groups in order, and when it comes to group 33, Adele is made the team leader. He receives 3 other members with him. Not recognizing their names, he believes them to be extras from the original story and not significant to future events. He goes to meet his team and introduces himself. 2 of his teammates introduce themselves with ease, Kina and Chris. The third one is standing to the side. His name is Sanchez. Sanchez begins to complain that a half-demon being appointed team leader is the greatest insult to his house. This irritates Adele, as even the side characters seem to be looking down on him. Adele wonders if these nobodies actually think they are better than the heirs of the 7 deadly sins. Choosing to ignore the insult, he gets his team on board and asks them to give their best in the test. Adele then starts to formulate the team strategy and begins assigning combat roles. He asks everyone about their abilities, starting with Chris, who can use mana transformation to form a prism, which can later take any shape. While not high in attack power, it is highly versatile and can also be used as a shield. Finding potential in his skill, Adele moves on to Kina, who is a support type. She can pray to the demon god and enhance allies' speed. She uses her spell and casts it on Adele, which exhausts her. She then asks Adele for his opinion. At first, he remains silent, then replies, "Maybe." Kina calls him mean, but Adele tells her he was only joking. He thinks that while it's at least something, the spell feels weak, which makes him wonder how she even passed the first test. Next, they ask Sanchez about his abilities. He demonstrates that he can solidify his body, making him ideal for a tank. He then asks Adele to show what he can do. Before Sanchez can finish the sentence, Adele tosses a ring and swaps places with it, appearing right in front of Sanchez. Caught off guard, Sanchez sees Adele slightly open his red eye and, with his hand on his weapon, declare that his ability is teleportation. Kina and Chris are both surprised and impressed, offering compliments. Adele chooses to hide the full extent of his abilities and skills, as he still has no idea what the future may bring. After the brief introductions, Adele assigns team roles. Chris and Sanchez will take the front line as defense, Adele himself will take the center, and Kina will support from the rear. Given the obvious distribution of roles, everyone agrees. When the test begins, the first group moves forward, ready for battle. Adele finds himself admiring the fire in their eyes, even though they are going against the Sword Saint. The Sword Saint readies himself, and in an instant, takes down the demon team. Adele, stunned, wonders if this is really only 10% of his power, as he couldn't even track his movements. As the first group is eliminated, the second group goes in and is defeated within seconds. The third group faces the same result. When the fourth group is called, they approach Ares and surrender. Ares looks at them and tells the 2 who want to quit that they may leave. He then turns to the remaining 2 and asks if they still wish to continue. They respond that they will try. With this single hint, Adele finally recognizes the hidden rules for this particular test. Now, seeing the group skip the test catches Chris by surprise. Some are not taking it while others are. The remaining 2 candidates approach Cell and attempt to attack him, but as expected, both are taken down within seconds. Adele thinks that if real swords had been used, they would have died instantly. Chris becomes discouraged and asks if there's any way to defeat this monster. Sanchez tries to maintain his composure, but his legs continue to shake. A series of one-sided battles and team forfeits follows, and by the time they reach Team 30, around 5 teams have already given up, and not a single group has managed to land a blow on the Saint. The test gives you a powerful opponent, and you're allowed to forfeit if you wish. What's more, the teams that come later seem slightly stronger than the ones before. This is proven when the current team manages to block one of the Saints' attacks. With this, Adele becomes certain about the winning condition of the test. Sanchez gathers the group and reminds everyone that their turn is coming up. Adele then tells them he knows how to pass the test, surprising Sanchez and the others. Adele explains that the true criterion is to show resolve in the face of overwhelming power, to keep getting back up even when defeat is certain. This, he believes, is the real purpose of the test, judging by the instructor's expressions and the force of the opponent. Sanchez tries to ask a question, but Adele interrupts him and starts to explain the plan. Now, it's Adele's group's turn as Ares calls them forward. The team's strategy is not necessarily to win, but to withstand the Sword Saint. Hina and Chris both become excited, realizing it doesn't matter if they lose. The author within Adele knows the potential of his current body. He is the strongest villain in the story, so he believes he can pull off a victory. As the round begins, they take defensive positions. Chris in front with his shield, Sanchez as the tank, Adele in the center, and Kina supporting from the rear. Now facing Cell in direct combat, the author finds himself uncertain. Since the novel he wrote focused mostly on the hero's side, Cell was never fully defined. Adele instructs the squad to fight without fear, and they respond affirmatively. Cell takes a deep breath and envelopes himself in mana. Adele signals to the team that an attack is coming. With a single swing, Cell shatters Chris's shield and sends him flying through the air. In that same instant, Kina casts a spell to reduce the impact on Chris, while Sanchez blocks the attack. With some struggle, the blow is halted. Adele notices a brief opening after Cell's strike, but it's too obvious. His instincts scream that it's a trap. He wonders if he's somehow developed an AI-like awareness. As Chris recovers, Adele warns him that the second attack is incoming. Chris rushes back to his original position, reforming a damaged shield. Adele knows they're nearing their limits. Sanchez's arms are already cracking from the force. Seeing the intensity of the blow, Adele urges them to hang on just a bit longer. When the second blow comes, the same suspicious gap appears. Cell's second wave of attack breaks through Chris again and launches him into the air. This time, the force is significantly greater, and Sanchez takes the full brunt of it. Overwhelmed, Sanchez yells at Adele to attack, or they will all die. Adele tells them to hold on just a bit longer. He begins analyzing Cell's next move, knowing their team is the only one to survive 2 blows so far. As Adele predicted, the Saint shifts his stance. He finds this group stronger than expected. Observing this change, Adele rushes toward Chris and asks him for a favor. At the same moment, Sanchez warns that another attack is coming. Chris, while activating his ability, asks if Adele really has a plan. Adele replies that he does, and it's the one that will take down Cell with a single strike. His killing intent is so intense that it makes everyone tense up. The Saint launches his third attack. Adele tells Sanchez he must brace for it alone. Before Sanchez can protest, the attack hits. Adele uses Sanchez's body as a pivot point and swaps places with him, leaping into the air. At the same time, he targets Cell's blade and swaps positions with it, appearing in front of the Saint midair. With full confidence and a fiery gaze, Adele rushes in, prepared to land the final blow on the Sword Saint. Now, as Adele is about to take down the Sword Saint, Ares, Renee, and everyone else in the room have their eyes fixated on him. But before the final blow can land on the Saint, Adele is struck in the gut by a sudden knee. The impact causes Adele to lose balance, and Adele couldn't land a strike on Cell, and he becomes enraged. Seeing no other option, he activates his secondary skill, Darkness, which envelopes both himself and the Saint, concealing them from the outside world. Adele reflects that if he hadn't taken Chris's barrier onto himself, he might have gotten seriously injured. Though the surprise attack failed, he still has a chance now that the Saint is trapped in the darkness. This skill creates a pitch-black space devoid of any light. Even Adele can't see anything inside, but he possesses the Fong of Darkness, which thrives in this environment. In such conditions, no weapon is more formidable. Armed with everything at his disposal, he rushes toward the saint, who is initially standing still, but suddenly, Cell turns and looks directly at him, as if able to see clearly in the void. Cell charges forward with an attack. Though shocked, Adele had suspected something like this might happen. Without fear, he readies his eye of superbia and the Fong of darkness, which has by now accumulated enough energy from the surrounding gloom. Adele prepares his next move, a barrage of darkness-infused daggers. Declaring that this time Cell is the one who took the bait, he unleashes his Black Blade Rain, a skill that strikes at Cell from all directions. Meanwhile, everyone outside is left wondering what's happening inside the dark storm. Instructors like Ares understand, it's almost over. Finally, the darkness fades, and when the field clears, Adele is the only one standing, while the sword Saint Cell lies on the ground. The applicants are stunned by what they see. Hearing the silence, Adele realizes he's finally done it. The other heirs find it entertaining. Chris and Kina rush over to Adele in celebration, asking how he managed to pull it off. Adele replies humbly that it was a team effort. He then inquires about Sanchez, who had taken a direct hit. Kina tells him that Sanchez was in a bit of shock due to the impact, but is now recovering with the help of the instructors. Adele expresses relief, then pulls out his dagger again and approaches the saint's body, declaring it's time to finish the job. Kina and Chris both appear confused about whether the battle is already over. Before they can process what Adele means, he began striking at already defeated Saint repeatedly. With a cold smile, he explains that they must ensure the Saint is truly down. This behavior catches the attention of Ares and Prone, who is with her subordinates. The latter comments that Adele isn't bad for a half-blood. The attendant of Fran compliments her, saying she's better than all of them. Fran responds by calling Adele a low breed, claiming he's an expert in deception, but that eventually, his mask will fall. She continues mocking him. Suddenly, Fran feels an intense killing intent. When she turns, it's coming from Renee. Fran wonders who she is. Upon closer inspection, she recognizes the horns. Renee is from the House of Bears. This realization makes Fran nervous. She tries to maintain her composure despite the silent threat. The surrounding crowd murmurs that this is what heirs do. They're always engaged in a battle of intimidation. Speculation begins about who will ultimately win. Fran's followers insist she'll win effortlessly, but Fran knows Renee is no pushover. As Adele steps away, and he notices Renee radiating overwhelming killing intent and wonders what happened to trigger it. Ares walks toward Adele and calls his name. Adele asks what he wants. Judging by his tone, Ares questions whether Adele truly doesn't know. With a poker face, Adele claims he has no idea. Ares leaves with a parting remark, telling Adele he'll be keeping an eye on him from now on. Adele had hoped for praise from the instructors, but that wasn't the case. He decides instead to observe Renee closely. As Adele approaches, both Renee and Fran are already emitting their mana, trying to overpower each other. Looking at Fran's attire and the horns on her head, Adele confirms she's from the House of Lust and wonders why she's provoking Renee. The author inside Adele regrets focusing so much on the human realm in his novel and neglecting the demonic world. That knowledge now seems useless. Fran then turns to Adele and sneers, calling him half-blood. Adele is confused as to why she's calling him out. Before he can respond, Fran shockingly demands that he become her slave. That's the final straw for Renee, who immediately leaps toward Fran with her sword drawn, fully prepared to take her down. Now, as Renee rushes toward Fran to take her down, Fran calls her crazy and unsheaths her sword to parry the attack. But before they can clash, the instructor Ares intervenes, declaring that unnecessary conflicts are not allowed inside Anne, and that personal problems should be resolved outside the premises. Adele feels relieved that nothing disastrous occurred between the houses before the entrance ceremony. Renee backs off at Ares' instruction and sheaths her sword again. While, visibly shaken, she wonders if Renee is out of her mind. Adele asks Renee if she is all right and adds that her group is next, so she should prepare for the bout. Before Adele can ask her further questions, Renee takes out a scarf and wipes the sweat from Adele's face. While doing so, Renee smiles and praises Adele. Fran shouts at them from nearby and inquires about the nature of their relationship, questioning whether Renee, the heir of the House of Pride, is dating a half-demon. Ignoring Fran, Adele appears pleased that, having passed the exam, he is already being treated better. He thanks the Lady Renee for her kindness. and she adds that perhaps he has been hiding his true strength to appear weaker. Before he can respond, Renee's group is called for the test. She departs for the test with the promise that she will keep his secret. Adele thinks that despite using all the tricks at his disposal, he still seems to be holding back. He wonders how weak he truly is at the moment, considering that Renee misunderstood him as a priest, which in a strange way makes sense. Suddenly, Fran approaches Adele and demands that he state his name. Noticing that Fran is indeed addressing him, he tells her his name, then inquires why she called him over in the first place. Planning to use her skill to sway Adele to her side, Fran employs her aura and commands him to leave the bear's family and serve her instead. While attempting to intimidate him with her aura and her seductive appeal, she intends to bend Adele to her will and shatter the ego of the House of Bears in the process. However, Adele, seemingly impervious to her influence, refuses her offer and tells her that it is Miss Renee's turn, so he is going to watch her. This surprises Fran, who wonders why her seductive skill is not affecting him. Adele proceeds toward the test, curious whether he will finally witness Renee's full potential, while Fran continues yelling if Adele intends to ignore her. Adele is delighted to see the heirs of the 7 families in action and holds high expectations for all of them. When Renee's match begins, both the Sword Saint and Renee launch a battle of intimidation while emanating their auras, with the standoff proving far tougher for the weaker combatant. Adele, unable to stop being impressed by Renee, watches as she makes another bold move, charging directly at the Sword Saint. This surprises Diana, the heir of the Demon Lord and the House of Envy, and leaves Adele in shock that she is approaching the Saint so fearlessly. When the distance between the Sword Saint and Renee narrows, they continue their standoff, glaring at each other with intensity. Finally, they both begin to attack. In this confrontation, Renee defeats the Sword Saint with a single blow. Everyone praises her display of power. Even Ares compliments her performance, while Adele muses that she won so easily because the Saint refrained from attacking her, having already identified her power as too dangerous to face. In the aftermath, Fran approaches Adele and remarks that she had wished the Saint would ridicule Renee, for if Renee could not handle this level of power, she would be a disgrace to the 7 deadly sins family houses. This surprises Adele, and he asks if, when all the heirs of 7 deadly sins are gathered, it is even possible to defeat the real Sword Saint. Fran clarifies that no one can defeat the Sword Saint in the current situation, unless perhaps a remnant of the previous demon kind survives. Adele then asks if all the children are stronger than the Saint at 10% power, implying that it should not be possible. Fran, sensing that Adele is mocking their power, explains that anyone who understands the real deal knows the copy they face is far weaker than 10% of full power. Adele worries that he is far weaker than he should be and wonders how he can hope to face the real one. Adele reflects that although he is the creator of this story and novel, he still has no idea what truly transpires in the demonic realm. Yet he cannot help but feel excited about what comes next. Now that only the 7 deadly sins families remain, the ensuing matches are predictable as all of them defeat the Saint effortlessly. He knows who the 2 strongest competitors in the area are, so he need not worry about that. With Diana's group, the test concludes, and Ares declares the end of the test while gathering everyone at the door. Now, Ares declares that everyone who participated in the test, regardless of whether they won or lost, has passed. The only ones who failed are those who did not take part at all. This is exactly what Adele had suspected as well. With that, Ares congratulates all the participants, stating that they are now officially part of the team as trainees. However, he warns them not to get too excited, as a hellish road lies ahead, one that will make many of them want to quit. He also announces that the entrance ceremony will be held 2 days from now. Ares then instructs the 8 participants who defeated the Sword Saint to remain where they are. Renee questions the reason behind this, to which Adele responds that the most likely explanation is the awarding of relics from the armory, as mentioned during the conclusion of the first test they took part in. Ares confirms this, stating that since they all passed with flying colors, as promised, they will now enter the armory. Baltan raises his hand to ask a question, and Ares permits him to speak. Baltan asks Ares if they're allowed to take a large number of weapons. Adele glances at Baltan, thinking how fitting it is that he lives up to the title of the Son of Envy. His greed and curiosity know no bounds. He also recalls that Baltan had significant screen time in the novel. Ares clarifies that taking and using multiple weapons would only dilute their talents, so they are initially allowed to take only one weapon each. Noting that they're short on time, Ares decides to take them directly to the vault without entertaining further questions. He places his hand on the vault door, and a magical circle appears, engulfing the door and lifting its magical seals. Everyone is surprised by the privileges granted to them by Saitan. Ares adds that whether they make the best or worst choice in selecting their weapon, it will entirely depend on them. Now, looking at the elegance of the door and the magic circle sealing it, Adele wonders what kind of weaponry lies beyond. It mostly resembles the entrance to a dungeon gate. Ares informs them that they will enter the room one by one in reverse order of their performance in the test. To ensure security, all participants will be inspected upon exit. Adele knows he is last on the list, and Baltan is the first to enter the room. Baltan heads into the weaponry, confidently claiming he'll obtain the best relic inside. Ares yells at him to hurry up and make it quick. Renee tells Adele that she'll likely choose an artifact since she already has a sword and asks what he plans to take. Adele replies that he'll probably go for an artifact as well. He then wonders if there will be anything left for him by the time it's his turn, as the others will likely choose similar items. One by one, the heirs begin to emerge, most of them carrying artifacts. Adele starts to consider whether he should go for armor instead. Renee informs him that it's his turn now. Looking at her, he sees she picked a bracelet and asks if she can share its traits. Renee replies that he'll find out once he's inside, as most of the items have descriptions attached to them, though some do not. Adele takes note of that. He wonders whether the items without descriptions are useless, but given how highly protected they are, that doesn't seem to be the case. He suspects they must hold some special value. Ares calls out to Adele, reminding him that he's the last one. Noticing Adele's uncertain expression, Ares asks if he has any questions. Adele remarks that Ares' face doesn't match his words, but then asks what the items without descriptions are. Ares explains that those items have not yet been figured out. Adele clarifies, asking if their origin is still unknown, to which Ares agrees. Ares tells him that if one is lucky, such an item could be an unparalleled treasure, but if unlucky, it could carry a curse that affects him for life. With that warning, Ares urges Adele to make it quick, as they are running out of time. Adele debates whether entering is wise or not. As he steps inside, he notes how tidy and well-organized the place is. He quietly hopes nothing jumps out to startle him. Walking down the hallway, he reaches the vault where many items are stored behind a magical glass barrier. Adele begins browsing, examining each item. One spear has the ability to summon 2 serpents using mana. Though intrigued, Adele compares it to his dagger and decides it's not worth the trade. Next, he sees an orb that channels light through mana, but he skips that as well since he uses dark magic. He then notices an empty glass container labeled as the Great Circlet of the Victor, which grants stamina and recovery to its owner. Once claimed, it binds to the user until death. Adele realizes Baltan really did take the best item. He thought binding items had already been removed from the vault, so finding one surprises him. This means most of the best items are already taken, and looking around, Adele confirms that no remaining weapon or armor stands out. In desperation, he starts considering cursed items, until an idea strikes him. Adele pulls out the paper and asks about a sword. The paper responds by asking for 100 gold coins. Spotting a loophole, Adele decides to use the paper to gauge item value. He asks about a scroll next. This time, the paper asks for 50 gold coins. From this, Adele determines that the more valuable the item, the more it costs to inquire about. Since several items lack descriptions, he begins asking about them in order. One statue costs only 1 gold coin, which makes him laugh. Out of curiosity, he pays for it, for the memes. The item changes the owner's fortune at the cost of someone else's misfortune. After reviewing almost every item, he finds nothing truly useful. Now he's down to the last 2. One item requires either 300 gold coins or a mythical artifact. Adele is thrilled to find such a high-value artifact and thinks it might be the best one available, even compared to what the heirs took. He's nearly ready to claim it when he senses something strange and looks at the artifact next to it. He feels as though someone, or something, is watching him. The final artifact is a necklace. He decides to inquire about it as well. As he does, The paper begins to glow, something that has never happened before. It says it must consult a god for information about the item. Adele wonders whether he has just discovered a legendary treasure. Finding an artifact that demands the highest price for its information, Adele sees it as his salvation in the current predicament. Steadying himself, he begins to wonder what it means to offer to a god. He only knows of the demon god, so what in the world is this necklace? He tries to infuse it with his mana to see what it can do, but nothing happens. Frustrated, he wonders about its nature. If only he knew what it did, it would be a tremendous help. Yet, the paper continues to ask for an offering to a god. Even when he attempts to rephrase the question, the response remains unchanged. Since the answer is the same no matter how he phrases it, he debates whether to continue pursuing the item or to give up entirely. Still, sensing something about the necklace, he ultimately decides to take it. His instincts tell him it will become very important in the near future. Adele opens his status window to check if anything has changed in his skill set or stats. There, he notices something unknown listed beside his Eye of Superbia skill. Since no one else is interested in his choice, he figures he can take his time to uncover the necklace's true nature. When Ares notices him, he asks about the item. Adele explains that it's one of the artifacts without a description. Ares asks if Adele chose the unknown item because he had some prior knowledge about it. Adele replies again that he has no idea how it works. Ares stares at him for a moment, making Adele wonder if Ares dislikes him or if it's something else entirely. But then Ares simply says he'll choose to trust him, as an instructor should believe in his candidates. Ares reminds everyone to take good care of their artifacts, as they may prove invaluable during hardships, possibly even serving as a second life. Adele reflects that all the others beside him will likely lead armies in the future, enjoying heavy investments and support from their followers. He wishes that someday he could stand among them as an equal. Making friends at the Institute seems like a challenge for him. With that, the vault is sealed once again, and the students are dismissed until the entrance ceremony. Adele heads toward Renee, planning to return to the dorms. Just as they are about to leave, someone grabs Adele's shoulder and calls out to him by his group number. When Adele turns, it's none other than Baltan, who surprisingly seems to be apologizing if he came off as rude. Baltan extends his hand, saying he liked the way Adele fought. Adele is caught off guard. It came out of nowhere, but he feels relieved that someone is approaching him first and being friendly. Just as Adele shakes Baltan's hand, he feels it being crushed. Adele becomes irritated, realizing Baltan is mocking him. Baltan is the type who shows no concern for the weak and only respects the strong. He's driven by jealousy and greed. It was evident in the novel. He nearly pushed the protagonist and the human realm to the brink of collapse. Upon realizing the protagonist's potential, he spared his life, promising to fight him later. In short, Baltan is a battle-crazed lunatic. As Baltan crushes his hand, he remarks that Adele seems to be struggling. Adele, thinking about how the room is filled with people stronger than him, wonders why Baltan chose to approach him. Eventually, seeing no other option, Adele uses his skill to swap places with Baltan's sword and grabs Baltan's shoulder in return, surprising him. Adele tells him that it's enough, that the tests are over, and that everyone is tired. He also tries to massage and fix his bruised hand. However, this only excites Baltan more. He exclaims that he wasn't expecting that and gets into fighting mode, saying Adele is strong and that he wants to fight him now. Adele struggles to deal with Baltan's twisted, confrontational nature. Adele firmly tells him that he has no intention of fighting. Suddenly, Renee steps in and interrupts. She tells Baltan that if he wants to fight her guard, then he'll have to fight her as well. Baltan laughs and admits that although he would love to fight them both, it would be too much, and he doesn't want to get injured before the school term starts. With a smirk, he adds that there will be plenty of chances in the future. Adele tries to process the absurdity of someone wanting to fight him to the death while also not wanting to get hurt. Baltan truly does have a twisted personality. Witnessing Baltan's nature firsthand, Adele becomes certain that he can't get a proper read on him. Renee then asks Adele to come with her back to the inn where they're staying. As Adele walks beside her, he thinks that although only a single day has passed, it already feels like many days have gone by. Still, he finds himself genuinely looking forward to his school life at Saitan. The next day at the inn, we see Adele waking up after a good night's rest, feeling refreshed both physically and mentally. He now considers trying on the school uniform that had been delivered by the school administration to their lodging. Adele thinks it's quite thoughtful of them to do so. He puts on the uniform and finds it to be a perfect fit. Since they're not allowed to wear anything else for the next 3 years, Adele notes that at least the uniform is both comfortable and practical. He recalls having already passed Renee her uniform set when it arrived along with his own and wonders how she might look in it. He hesitates, but then thinks it might be all right to go and take a look. Adele knocks on Renee's door, and when she asks who it is, he replies that he's there to see if she needs anything before he heads out. Renee opens the door and invites him in. Dressed in her school uniform, Renee looks elegant, leaving Adele speechless for a second. After a brief pause, he tells her she looks beautiful, catching Renee off guard. Trying to compose herself, she coughs and asks if he's going somewhere. However, Adele clearly notices that her ears have turned red. Adele thinks that even Renee gets a little embarrassed sometimes, revealing a new, cute side of her that he hadn't seen before. He tells her that since he has a rare day off, he plans to explore the city a little and had come to inform her of it. He suggests she rest and enjoy her time. As Adele turns to leave, he's suddenly stopped by Renee, who asks if he has something he needs to do. Her question puzzles Adele. He wonders what she could be referring to and what exactly it is that he might have forgotten. Looking at Renee, Adele tries to remember what he's forgetting. Then the word guard comes to mind, and he suddenly recalls that he's supposed to protect and accompany her. It seems that a long rest has scrambled his brain a little. Renee tells Adele that she'll tag along with him, but she needs to change first and asks him to wait for her. Seeing Adele freeze in place, Renee teases him and asks how long he plans to keep staring at her. Embarrassed, Adele says he'll wait outside the room. While Renee changes into her outdoor clothes, Adele waits outside, silently mourning the fact that his precious day off is already slipping away. In the midst of the city, observing the hustle and bustle all around, Adele reflects on how unbelievable it is that this place was a war zone just a decade ago, once in ruins and shambles. Though reconstruction is still ongoing, it's easy to tell that while the humans may have won the war, they failed to capture the capital city. As they walk, Renee tugs on Adele's shoulder and points toward a food stall that catches her attention. Adele looks at the street vendor and asks if that's what she's referring to. Eyeing the skewers, he asks the vendor what they're made of. The vendor replies that they're seasoned buck and vegetables. Adele buys 2 skewers. Watching Renee enjoy her food, Adele asks if she likes it. He never imagined someone as stoic as Renee could make such an expression while eating, and he wonders if she started to open up a little. The two continue their stroll around the city, talking and enjoying themselves. Adele thinks it's been far too long since he had a proper break, and this might be the last time he gets to enjoy such a day off. As they wander, they come across a statue that captures Adele's attention. Curious, he asks who the statue is of. Renee is surprised that he doesn't recognize the first Demon King. Hearing that name jogs his memory, and he notices some resemblance between the statue and Diana. Adele steps closer, knowing how rare it is to find such monuments in the city. Just as he leans in for a better look, the statue begins to glow, causing the necklace around his neck to emit a light as well. Shocked, Adele wonders why the necklace is glowing. He takes it out, and the light engulfs both the statue and the necklace. When the glow fades, Adele notices that one of the stones on the necklace has turned gray while the others remain white. He tries to make sense of the situation but finds himself unable to. Renee, puzzled, asks if he's okay since he suddenly took out his necklace and began staring at it. Hearing Renee's concern, Adele wonders if he was hallucinating, but he's certain he saw the light and that the stone's color definitely changed. Looking at Renee, who seems completely unaware of what just happened, Adele concludes that he was the only one who saw the light emerging from the statue. Thinking back to the vague answers the paper had given him in the vault, like offer a god, he starts to see a connection. Finding a clue in such an unexpected place and moment, Adele becomes convinced that the necklace is somehow linked to the first Demon King. If he continues to investigate both the necklace and the king, he might uncover something hidden from everyone else. Renee tells Adele that they should head back, and Adele follows her. This unexpected encounter leaves him even more intrigued about the necklace's nature and how it works. The next morning, both Renee and Adele set off for Saitan. Adele has brought everything necessary for their dorm life and asks Renee to head inside as the entrance ceremony is about to begin. At the ceremony, The instructors and headmaster are already present, and the speeches commence. Around 100 new students have enrolled this term. Some students whisper about whether it's appropriate for a child to be the headmaster of such a prestigious school, but those who remember the test know full well that the child is a monster, someone who overwhelmed them by presence alone. Still, some of the students call her cute. The word cute bothers Adele. Sure, she looks like a kid, but she is covered in tattoos. That shows how strong the headmaster is. How can that be considered cute? He wonders if people have something wrong with their eyes. As he's thinking this, the headmaster suddenly gives him a direct glare, sending a chill down his spine. In desperation, he starts repeating positive thoughts to himself. She's cute. He's convinced that she can read minds, because her reaction doesn't make sense otherwise. Aries shouts that the ceremony is about to begin and that everyone must remain quiet. The speech itself was fairly standard, emphasizing the importance of following the rules. In a short while, the headmaster's speech came to an end. Then, the oath-taking ceremony began, and the instructor called forth the top cadet and the runner-up. With that, Baltan and Diana were summoned to the stage. Adele had expected them to be the top cadets, and judging by Renee's composed expression, he believes that everyone else had seen it coming as well. He reflects that Renee's presence here is driven by revenge for her mother, so she doesn't seem interested in any other competition for now. As for Adele, he knows he must simply do what needs to be done. Suddenly, he feels a chilling sensation pass through his body, and when he looks around, he sees that it's coming from Baltan. Adele wonders what he can do to shake off this stalker. Deciding not to react, he keeps his composure. Now that both cadets are on stage, Diana stands with a presence so elegant it's almost divine, like a goddess. Diana and Baltan begin the oath-taking ceremony, and as it progresses, the atmosphere grows increasingly tense. The anger of those who lost loved ones in the war hangs heavy in the air. Adele places his hand over his mark and worries that if his true identity is exposed, Adele would be in big trouble. As the ceremony draws to a close, Aries instructs the candidates to check the bulletin board for their classroom assignments. Once confirmed, they are to head directly to class. Adele and Renee walk over to the bulletin board, and as they begin scanning the list, Adele discovers he's been placed in Class A. When he finds Renee's name, he can't help but smile with a tear in his eye. He tells Renee that she's been placed in Class C. Renee notices the smile on Adele's face and tells him to stop looking so pleased. Getting slightly pouty, she reminds him that he's still her guard, so he must come when she calls. Adele agrees, but in his mind, he's thinking, nope, finally, I can breathe. Just as he's enjoying that thought, someone bumps into him. The stranger glares at Adele and angrily asks if he has a death wish. The one in front of him is Samuel from the House of Gluttony. He is also one of the strong members among the 7 deadly sins families. To avoid any confrontation early on, Adele decides to apologize, despite being the victim. Samuel angrily tells him to get lost and be thankful that it's only the first day of school. Adele wonders why the family heirs are so poorly behaved. He hopes Baltan isn't in the same class as him. Meanwhile, in the staff room, the teachers seem to be arguing about something. One of the instructors insists that she is the rightful instructor assigned to the institute and questions why they don't believe her. Aries responds that the problem isn't her, but the student. He explains that Adele is dangerous and, based on his experience in such situations, he is better suited to deal with him. However, the female instructor asserts that the student has been officially assigned to her class, and Aries can't override that on a whim. The principal asks Idea to sit down. She does so, complaining that everyone is always mean to her. The principal then turns to Aries, asking why he suddenly wants to switch the class he's in charge of. Aries explains that he wants to take personal responsibility for Cadet Adele. In his career, he has faced many opponents in battle and war, and he can tell just by looking that Adele was born to be a killer. He's the type who could turn on his allies in an instant, so he must be closely monitored. Another instructor questions whether Aries is being overly cautious for a mere half-demon, adding that Adele is much weaker than the children of the 7 families. Aries counters that strength isn't solely defined by power. Adele's ability to take bold actions and remain calm places him on par with the 7 deadly sins. The others begin to realize that Aries might be right. Aries again requests to take over classes so he can keep a close eye on Adele. Idea interrupts, asking if this means no one trusts her to handle the student. Aries apologizes if he made her feel that way. As the conversation drags on, the headmaster grows bored and ends the debate with a show of dominance. Once the room falls silent, she acknowledges Aries' concerns but states that since class assignments have already been made, changing them now would cause more harm than good. Hearing this, Aries backs down. However, the headmaster instructs all the teachers to remain vigilant. It never hurts to be cautious. She specifically recommends that Idea pay close attention to Adele. With that, the meeting concludes, and the instructors head off to their respective classrooms. Now, in the classroom, we see Adele wondering why he's so unlucky. The reason is clear. Fran is sitting right in front of him. He thinks that at least it's better than having Diana around. Samuel is also in the same class, but again, Adele thinks it's still better than dealing with Baltan. Fran turns to Adele and asks if he's following her into class. Adele replies that class allotments are done by the administration and are randomly assigned. Fran, acting smug, declares that she'll allow Adele to be her subordinate in the classroom. Samuel, watching this unfold, yells at them to stop playing around or he will teach them a lesson. Fran becomes furious at Samuel's behavior, and the two begin arguing. Adele, on the verge of tears, can only hope that his school life will somehow go smoothly. Before things escalate further, Idea enters the classroom. Hearing the noise, she remarks that they all seem quite busy on their first day. Adele instantly recognizes her as the instructor. The instructor introduces herself and informs the class that she will be their homeroom teacher. She also shares her title, stating that she is famously known as the Legion of Calamity. Adele tries to recall the name from his story, while the students around him whisper about the legendary warrior who allegedly took down tens of thousands of humans single-handedly at the Pollux River. Hearing that someone so powerful will be their instructor, Adele feels that his chances of survival may have just increased. After the introductions, Idea explains how she intends to lead the class. She tells them the first subject she will teach is hunting methods. However, she clarifies that this hunting does not refer to animals or beasts. When one of the students asks what their target will be, Idea states clearly that they will be learning how to hunt humans. Hearing this, Adele feels a spark of excitement for the curriculum. Idea elaborates that the subject will focus on methods and techniques, while practical weapon handling will be taught by another instructor. Fran, meanwhile, thinks to herself that Idea has a nice face. Idea also announces that she will handle their basic stamina training as well. With that, she takes the class to the training grounds. The training ground is as wide as a battlefield. As the students wonder what they are doing there, Idea arrives, and after taking head count, she activates a spell. This summons a large human army. Seeing the surprised expressions of the students, Idea informs them that the army is made using illusion magic. She also reveals that she was the one responsible for creating the sword saint they faced during their entrance test. Adele, stunned that she could replicate such a monster, mentally adds Idea to the list of monsters residing in Saitan. However, he still considers the Royal Academy to be more advanced than Saitan. Idea then tells the students that today's test is to break through the army and reach her. Looking around to choose someone to start with, her eyes fall on Adele. Recalling her argument with Aries, she singles him out and challenges him directly. With a wide grin on her face, she tells Adele to try and defeat her, just like Adele did take down the Sword Saint during the entrance exam. Upon seeing Professor Idea release her aura, Adele thought to himself, first it was Professor Aries, and now even Adele has caught Instructor Idea's attention. Adele informed Professor Idea that Adele was not sparring directly with the instructor. However, Idea responded that among the humans, there is one who acts as their instructor, a source of mental fortitude and leadership. When the leader falls, she said, the humans collapse, but if their leader is strong, so are they. She then declared that she would assume the role of the humans' leader. As Adele prepared himself, he stated calmly that he understood. Adele thought to himself about the art of war by Sun Tzu. Defeat the enemy by capturing their chief. Subdue the leader, and the rest will fall. With a smirk, Adele mused that it would be too easy. Professor Idea, however, stated that it would be impossible for Adele to subdue her directly. So she proposed a compromise. If Adele could simply lay his hands, or a weapon, on her, it would count as a pass. She then announced the beginning of the test. Immediately, the human soldiers rushed toward Adele without hesitation. Adele wasted no time and activated his position transfer spell. In an instant, he appeared behind Professor Idea with his dagger aimed at her neck. Instructor Idea was completely taken aback by the sudden move. With a confident smirk, Adele asked, "Does this count as a pass, Instructor?" Several dozen meters had separated Adele and Instructor Idea just moments ago, but that distance meant nothing to him now. He had once only been able to span a few meters with his magic. This is incredible progress, he thought. With this ability, I could destroy an enemy base effortlessly. Despite the surprise attack, Instructor Idea managed to block Adele's strike using a protective barrier. Smiling, she admitted, "I understand now why I was warned to keep an eye on you, Adele." Blocking his dagger with one hand, she acknowledged his success. "You pass. Return to your place." "Understood," Adele replied. As he walked back, he pondered silently. Is it hostility or curiosity? He couldn't quite grasp what about him made the instructors so intrigued. Adele also wondered if the instructors had begun to suspect Adele's true identity. Instructor Idea then turned to the other students. "Did you all see what Adele did? Those who fail will receive additional training sessions." The students visibly deflated at this announcement. The scene shifted to a few moments later, where a student faced off against the human army. Observing, Adele noted that the students had solid fundamentals, as expected of demons. Still, the army was composed of normal humans without powers, so their limited success was expected. Even so, the students only managed to defeat a few soldiers. Adele thought, if Instructor Idea were to control the army directly, the students wouldn't stand a chance. One student, overwhelmed and cornered by the army, failed the test. Everyone watched in shock. Then, another student leapt forward to engage the army, but was taken down swiftly by archers. The room fell into a stunned silence. "My position transfer skill really is overpowered," Adele mused. "At this rate, I might just aim for the top of the class." Instructor Idea called for the next student. Samuel stepped forward confidently. Seeing this, Adele wondered whether Samuel's arrogant personality actually matched his skill level. Samuel began releasing his aura and announced, "I'm starting." In an instant, he activated a wind spell, conjuring a massive whirlwind that swept through the battlefield and took down the entire human army. Adele was stunned by the sheer power of the spell. Gluttony, Samuel's unique ability, was a monstrous skill that tore through everything in its path. Adele, watching silently, thought to himself that he would let Samuel take the top spot in the class, for now. However, Instructor Idea remained completely unharmed. Seeing this, Adele wasn't surprised. It's to be expected, he thought. There's no way an instructor would be injured by a mere cadet. Instructor Idea acknowledged Samuel's overwhelming attack. "It's impressive," she said, "that you managed to take down everything except me." But then she added, "Unfortunately, you fail." Samuel's eyes widened in disbelief. Instructor Idea calmly explained, "If you don't take down the leader, the army will always find replacements to fill its ranks. No matter how many soldiers you defeat, it's meaningless if the leader remains." With a wave of her hand, she instantly revived the entire army. Adele was visibly shocked. Restoring that many soldiers in mere seconds was astonishing. Smirking, Instructor Idea added, "Still, your magic is quite powerful, for a first-year cadet, that is." Frustrated, Samuel returned to his place. As he walked back, Instructor Idea called for the next cadet. Watching him, Adele noticed the discontent on Samuel's face, but was surprised to see him handling the result with composure. As Samuel passed by, he stared at Adele. Adele thought, Samuel is too overconfident in his abilities. That's why he failed. If he had focused on the actual objective, like I did, he would have passed with ease. Now it was the next student's turn, Fran. Fran stepped forward confidently, ready to show everyone her true strength. The other students watched eagerly, curious to see if she could pass the test. Fran attempted to cast a spell on the human army, but nothing happened. Confused, she stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Adele observed the situation and thought, as expected, Fran doesn't fight directly. She commands her subordinates like a queen bee. Without them, she can't do anything. Panicking, Fran realized she had to act. In desperation, she turned around and looked toward Adele, calling out to him for help. Panicked, Fran shouted at Adele, "Hurry up and help me already." Instructor Idea remained completely unimpressed by the scene and gave the order for the army to advance. The human soldiers easily overwhelmed Fran. Watching this unfold, Adele wondered if From was unable to cast her spells on herself, but that seemed unlikely. Perhaps there's a special reason behind it, he thought. As he turned away, Adele was surprised to see a pink-haired girl healing someone. He could hardly believe it. Healing magic was a power exclusive to humans. Does that mean she's a half-demon too? He wondered. Adele had never imagined being in the same class as someone with such a rare talent. He couldn't recall her name, but he knew he needed to find a way to connect with her. Should I approach her now? He considered. Just then, Instructor Idea called out to him. Since From was asking for your help earlier, and now that the test is over, perhaps you could assist her. Yes, understood, Adele replied, though he couldn't help but think that the timing couldn't be worse. He walked over to Fran and gently said, Wake up, the test is over now. Still crying, Fran looked at him and asked, Did you see everything? What are you talking about? Adele asked, genuinely confused. Stop acting clueless, she snapped, frustrated. Smiling slightly, Adele replied, Well, I did see you looking weaker than your own subordinates. Enraged, Fran shouted, Are you mocking me? Before Adele could respond, Instructor Idea addressed the group. Gather around, everyone. She continued, I had certain expectations, but the results were more or less what I anticipated. Still, good work on your first lesson. It's important for students to go through experiences like this. It helps you understand where you stand, what mistakes you're prone to, and what your limitations are. Knowing these things will allow you to support one another and function as a team in real combat. Meanwhile, Adele reflected on the difference between this academy and the human imperial school. There, he thought, students were grouped by ability. But here in Satan, the class president is chosen randomly. That means synergy is crucial. Instructor Idea is probably trying to emphasize that. Then Instructor Idea turned toward Adele, the only student who passed the test, and said, I'll be looking forward to your progress. Adele bowed slightly and replied, Thank you, Instructor. I'll do my best to learn everything I can. However, the rest of the students glared at him with visible frustration. Adele couldn't help but think, she was praising me, so why did it sound so hostile? Samuel, too, was fuming as he watched the instructor compliment Adele. The scene shifted to the next classroom. After Instructor Idea's class, the remaining lessons followed in sequence. The new teacher introduced himself as the one in charge of theoretical education. In theory class, Adele learned about the history of the demonic realm and the inherent weaknesses of humans. At the end of the lecture, the instructor announced, Next time, there will be a quiz on today's material. If you wish to avoid remedial lessons, make sure to memorize everything. As the instructor left the classroom, Adele slumped over his desk, completely exhausted. It feels just like my old school days, he thought. And it's only the first day? I already feel defeated. He looked around the classroom and began to tear up, realizing he had no friends, just like back then. At that moment, his eyes landed on the pink-haired girl who had used healing magic earlier. Determined, Adele decided to speak to her this time. He stood up and walked toward her, introducing himself. The entire class was stunned. All eyes turned to him, and Adele couldn't help but wonder, why is everyone staring? The pink-haired girl smiled politely and responded, Yes, it's nice to meet you too, Adele. Adele thought to himself, whenever two half-demons interact, it's bound to draw attention. Noticing that the girl looked uncomfortable, he decided to cut the conversation short. I'll talk to you another time, he said. Goodbye, Adele, she replied softly. As Adele turned to leave the classroom, Samuel entered, blocking his path. What terrible timing, Adele thought. Samuel looked at him with irritation. You again. I was just about to leave, Adele replied. Go ahead, I'll follow after you. As Samuel walked past, he muttered, Low-class half-demon. Adele froze, anger bubbling inside him. Your family must be amazing, he shot back. Samuel stopped in his tracks, turning around. What did you just say? Adele continued. You failed the test, and still talk like that? Samuel's aura flared to its fullest, radiating with pure hostility. Unlike Baltan, whose aura had presence but no malice, Samuel's was filled with hatred. Adele braced himself. If he's going to get in my way, Adele thought, it might be better to eliminate him now. As they stood face to face, tension building, Adele considered using magic. If I injure him, no one would care. He's the one provoking this. But at that exact moment, the instructor suddenly appeared near his desk and said calmly, Stop right there. Both Adele and Samuel were caught off guard. With a gentle smile, the instructor added, "Take your seats. The next class is about to begin." Shocked, Adele wondered, when did he even enter the room? Adele thought to himself that while the instructor's sudden appearance was surprising, what was even more unsettling was how both his and Samuel's abilities had been instantly deactivated. Who is this instructor, really? He wondered. The instructor, unfazed, told them both to take their seats, stating that he needed to introduce himself. As Adele and Samuel returned to their desks, Adele couldn't shake off the unease. It doesn't feel right to just let this go, he thought. The instructor began, "My name is Robolt. I'll be teaching you magic from now on." Hearing this, Adele's interest was immediately piqued. If Robolt is an instructor at Satan Academy, he must be incredibly powerful, he thought. I'm really looking forward to this. When it comes to a fantasy world, Adele continued thinking, magic is the first thing that comes to mind. In my novel, magic is in a completely different category from talents or traits. Maybe it's closer to a skill or even a branch of academic study, depending on the perspective. Robolt continued, "Before we begin learning magic, there's something you must all understand: attributes. Attributes are the foundation of magical affinity. They are typically based on the 4 classical elements: earth, water, wind, and fire. When you add darkness and light, there are 6 basic attributes." Adele reflected, "Most people only have 1 attribute, but maybe I have 2. The Bear family's darkness attribute is clear, but I don't know what attribute I inherited from the Adele family." Robolt then explained, "In today's class, we'll determine which attributes your mana contains. When you place your hand on this orb, its color will change to reflect your affinity." He instructed the students to line up. Adele chose to stay at the back. He wanted to observe others first. One by one, students came forward and placed their hands on the orb. When one student touched it, the orb glowed red. "You have a fire attribute," Robolt announced. "Green means wind," he added, as another student's orb lit up. Eventually, it was Adele's turn. Robolt called his name, which surprised Adele. He hadn't expected the instructor to know who he was already. As instructed, he stepped forward and placed his hand on the orb. The orb immediately turned black, half of it, at least. The other half shimmered in a strange, grayish light. Adele looked at it, confused. What attribute does this color represent? Robolt stepped closer, examining the orb. "Black usually signifies darkness, common among high-ranking demons," he said. "But this grayish light, it's extremely rare. So even you don't know what it means?" Adele asked. "I do," Robolt replied. "I was just surprised, it's that rare. The gray represents chaos. It's the attribute behind magic that defies natural law." Adele was stunned. "There's magic like that?" "That's about all I know," Robolt admitted. "Beyond that, I'm not sure." "I understand," Adele said, nodding. "I've never heard of this attribute before," he thought, "and I'm certain I never even wrote about it in my novel. Magic that defies providence, there's definitely a clue in that phrase. With my darkness attribute confirmed, I'll have to dig deeper into this." The scene shifted a few moments later. Adele sat alone, deep in thought, still pondering the gray color and the strange attribute that defied natural law. Suddenly, Fran crept up behind him, trying to scare him. But Adele turned around before she could. "What are you doing behind me?" he asked calmly. Fran jumped back in shock. She couldn't believe Adele had noticed her stealth technique. "You saw through that?" she asked, stunned. "What stealth technique?" Adele asked, raising an eyebrow. Fran composed herself and replied, "That's not the point." She crossed her arms. "What on earth were you thinking?" Adele blinked. "What do you mean? Don't pretend you don't know," Fran said sharply. "I'm talking about provoking Samuel." Adele replied, "I just don't have the temperament to tolerate being picked on." Frustrated, Fran crossed her arms. "Is that your excuse? Was there a problem with that?" Adele asked. Fran looked him in the eye. "You messed with a noble family, Adele. It's not like outside forces can get into Satan anyway," Adele said, shrugging. "So I figured I'd be fine." "That's not what I'm talking about," Fran said sharply. Adele looked confused. "Then what do you mean?" Fran sighed and said, "This isn't just a matter between demons, it's about Samuel's family." She paused, then added, "I'll head back for now. Just be careful." As Fran walked away, Adele stood there, wondering what she was really trying to say. Was she warning me because Samuel's family is known for revenge? He thought. No, that doesn't seem to be it. Pushing the thought aside, Adele decided to focus on the final class of the day. The next instructor was Aries. As he entered the classroom, he immediately addressed the students. All of you cadets are weak. Normally, students like you wouldn't even deserve to be here. As instructor Aries continued, the entire class sat quietly, listening. A few students began to show signs of frustration. Adele thought, is he trying to provoke the cadets on purpose? Then Aries announced, I'll personally be teaching this class swordsmanship. The scene shifted to the training arena, where all the students were running laps. Instructor Aries shouted, the foundation of swordsmanship is stamina. Techniques powered by stamina are 2 or 3 times more effective. By their 30th lap, most of the students were visibly exhausted. Some began to murmur, wondering how much longer they would have to keep running. Suddenly, Aries noticed Fran and Samuel using mana to enhance their endurance. Furious, he demanded, who told you to use mana? Both Fran and Samuel quickly apologized. Start over from the beginning, Aries ordered. They were stunned. Watching the scene, Adele thought, nobles trying to cheat like that? Kids raised in nobility are too soft. He remembered his own past, possessing someone, taking down knights, escaping to the demon realm. It had been complete chaos. Eventually, Professor Aries commanded, stop. He looked over the group. You've all worked hard today. Cadets who completed 50 laps, head to your assigned dorms. Those who didn't finish in time, extra lessons for you. Adele thought to himself, what a rough day. I should get to the dorm and rest. The scene shifted to the dormitory. Adele, now thoroughly exhausted, just wanted to find his room and rest. As he searched for his room number, someone suddenly placed a hand on his shoulder. Startled, Adele turned around. It was Renee. But he had no idea why Renee was there, or why she looked so angry. Adele turned around and asked, Renee, are you on your way to the dorm? Yes, Renee replied curtly. Trying to make conversation, Adele asked, how was your first day of class? Renee remained silent. Adele glanced at her, wondering, did someone in class get on her nerves? From the way other students were staring, it looked like a scene ripe for misunderstanding. Breaking the silence, Renee said, your training is lacking. Let's go do a cool-down workout together. She glanced at him expectantly. You'll help me, right? Adele didn't respond, but his expression clearly showed he had no interest in going. Still, he followed her. As they walked, Adele thought to himself, does Renee not get tired? There's a cadet training area nearby, Renee said. We still have time, so let's hurry. Understood, Adele replied. Training with one of the 7 deadly sins descendants, he mused. Even if it's tough, it'll be beneficial. The scene shifted to the training ground, which resembled a modern gym. Taking in the spacious facility filled with cadets working hard, Adele commented, this place is pretty impressive. So much equipment, it'll definitely help improve stamina. Renee approached the nearest machine and said, let's start with this. Mind if I try first? Adele asked. As he stepped forward and gripped the barbell, already loaded with weights, Renee raised an eyebrow. That looks heavy. Don't worry, Adele replied with confidence. I've been training for years. This should be nothing, he thought. He gave it his all, but failed to lift the barbell. You're too weak, Renee said flatly. Stop before you hurt yourself. Reluctantly, Adele gave up. Renee stepped forward, grasped the barbell effortlessly, and lifted it with ease. Adele was stunned. She's amazing, he thought. I can't even compare, not even in raw strength. Motivated, he resolved to work harder. A few moments later, Renee was still working out with focused intensity. Adele, checking the time, informed her, it's already been 2 hours. Should we wrap it up and head back? Okay, Renee replied. I'll escort you to the dorm entrance, Adele offered. Sure, she said. Aside from today, Adele thought, Renee's been training a lot lately. Just then, a system window appeared, displaying Renee's stats. Her traits were curiosity, immersion, darkness, mana control, and killing intent. Adele noted that while most stats remained the same, Renee's mana level was 1321. Even though she's been practicing mana control every night, it only increased by 24, he observed. Well, this is the slowest growth period, after all. Should I get an elixir or something? Let's go, Renee called out, returning after changing. Noticing Adele wasn't responding, she asked, what are you doing? Startled, Adele quickly closed the system window. Nothing. Let's go. They walked together until they reached the dormitory. Good night, Adele said. Good night, Renee replied. then headed to her room. As she left, Adele thought, "Earlier I was completely exhausted. I just want to get to my room and sleep." He pulled out his acceptance letter and checked his dorm assignment, room 407, 4th floor. Upon finding the room, Adele stood outside the door, wondering, who will my roommate be? Hopefully someone with both skill and a good personality. He felt a flicker of excitement at the thought of finally making his first friend in the demon realm. But as he opened the door, Adele was left speechless. It was Samuel. Staring in disbelief, Adele thought, Why? Why is Samuel here? Angrily, Adele sat down on his bed, thinking, this is not okay. Of all people, I ended up sharing a room with Samuel. They exchanged frustrated glances before both looked away. Should I just take him down now? Adele briefly wondered, then sighed and stood up. Seeing this, Samuel tensed up. You want to fight right now? He asked. Adele rolled his eyes. Are you out of your mind? I'm just stepping out. As he headed for the door, he added, Enjoy your rest. The scene shifted outside, where Adele paced the academy grounds, clearly irritated. Just when I thought I could finally relax, he grumbled. It turns out Samuel is my roommate. He decided it would be better to walk around for a while and return only after Samuel had fallen asleep. He's not even the child of wrath, Adele thought. So why is he always so angry? He couldn't make sense of it. Then it clicked. Samuel was the child of gluttony. Maybe it's similar to how my disposition is tied to chaos. I never gave it much thought until Instructor Robolt mentioned it. But what does chaos even mean? He wondered. Is it a mana attribute? He briefly considered consulting the information paper, but quickly dismissed the idea. If it had the answer, it would have told me when it explained the engraved abilities. And it would have definitely included something about chaos. Not wanting to waste money for nothing, Adele felt more frustrated than ever. Not knowing anything is infuriating. Deciding to clear his head, he went to look for a quiet place to train his mana technique. As he walked through the campus, he suddenly felt as if something was watching him. He turned around, only to spot a small sparrow perched on a tree branch. For a moment, Adele was stunned. There are birds in the demon realm? He smiled faintly. The bird looked oddly cute. Even in Satan Academy, outside creatures roam around. That's kind of interesting. Later that night, Adele returned to his dorm room. To his relief, Samuel was already asleep. Without wasting time, Adele collapsed onto his bed. Should I at least squeeze in a bit of mana training before I sleep? He thought. But the moment he tried, exhaustion overtook him, and he drifted off. As Adele slept, a shadow moved quietly within the room. Samuel stood near his bed, watching him. Samuel glared at Adele and thought to himself, even his sleeping face looks dumb and irritating. He clenched his fists. And he insulted my family too. Even if I was in the wrong, I'm not going to be the one to apologize first. He decided to let it go for now. He already had enough on his plate and didn't want to waste energy on someone like Adele. But then Samuel remembered that strange presence Adele had shown during class. That pressure, it felt familiar, like a pain I've experienced before. Why? Just then, Samuel began to feel a sharp pang in his body. It's starting again. Gluttony's rampage, he realized. He was starving, beyond control. Looking at Adele, Samuel muttered, I'm starving, and now I've got to stare at your mug till morning. He clenched his jaw. Right now, I seriously want to punch you. The scene shifted to the following morning. Adele slowly woke up and rubbed his eyes. What time is it? He glanced out the window and was surprised to see the same bird from yesterday perched on the branch outside. In a place like Satan, which is strict about outside intrusions, seeing a non-cadet life form is unusual. Someone must be spying on me, he thought. Could it be Instructor Ares? He did seem suspicious. A quick mana scan confirmed that the bird was not an illusion. It was a living creature. Adele wondered, should I try taming it with food? Then he noticed Samuel was already gone, probably off eating. I should get going too, before breakfast ends, Adele thought, but then paused. Wait, where's the dining hall again? The scene shifted to later that day, during Instructor Idea's class. Good morning. Idea greeted the students as she entered. Adele sat at his desk, stomach grumbling. He had missed breakfast after getting lost while trying to find the dining hall. I hope I can stay focused in class today. Instructor Idea continued. Before we begin, there's an important announcement. Adele perked up. An announcement? What could it be? Today, during homeroom, she said, you will be selecting a class president. One student raised a hand. How will the president be chosen? I was going to have a vote among candidates, Instructor Idea explained, but I've changed my mind. Just as she was about to announce the name, Fran stood up. A wise decision, instructor. Adele sighed. As expected, it's Fran. Just like in the novel. He glanced towards Samuel. There's no way someone with his personality could be class president. Excited, Fran declared. I am the class queen. To be fair, Adele thought, she really is the most suitable. Around the room, students began whispering. What about Adele? He's the most capable. But he's a half-demon. Can a half-demon be class president? What about Samuel? Samuel's too scary. Adele was taken aback. Was my performance in the first class really that impressive? Still, it felt nice hearing his name mentioned. Fran turned to Instructor Idea. Go ahead, instructor. Don't be shy, announce it. Instructor Idea looked at her and said calmly, Cadet Fran is not the class president. Fran's expression froze in disbelief. The Class A president, Idea continued, is Cadet Adele. Adele's eyes widened in shock. Me? This makes no sense. Fran protested. She named a half-demon like me as class president, Adele thought. What on earth is she thinking? Instructor Idea smiled and said, Please do your best to lead the class. Yes, instructor, Adele replied. I have another class to attend, she added. I'll leave a few announcements here. Start preparing for your midterm exams at the end of the semester. Instructor Idea continued. Classes from now on will focus on practical training, and the training will be done in teams of 3. All students must form their teams by the end of the day. Hearing this, Adele thought about the upcoming midterms and the nature of the training. If it's practical training at Satan, then it most likely involves taking down humans. After all, defeating opponents is essential in real combat. Instructor Idea concluded, That's the end of today's homeroom. She turned to Fran and added sharply, And Fran, if you speak informally to me again, I'll personally give you private supplementary lessons. Fran jolted in surprise, clearly startled by the warning. Then Idea turned to Adele. Please submit the team list during the final lesson of the day. Everyone, do your best in today's classes. Meanwhile, Adele thought to himself, team formation aside, where are we even supposed to train? Are we going to fight against that army of soldiers Instructor Idea summoned yesterday? But if that were the case, there wouldn't be a need to form teams. In the novel, it's not yet time for the invasion of the human world, he reflected. Regardless, my top priority right now is forming a solid team. And I've already picked someone. The scene shifted to the Academy Hall a few moments later. Instructor Aries, visibly irritated, was heading somewhere with determined steps. He arrived at Instructor Idea's office. Seeing him enter, Idea smiled and said, You're here, senior. Frustrated, Aries snapped. What were you thinking? Still smiling, Idea replied. It's nice to see that serious face of yours again. That's not what I came here for, Aries retorted. Why did you appoint Adele as class president? Oh, that just happened this morning, Idea said calmly. You must have eyes and ears all over Satan if you already know. You can't possibly understand what naming Adele as class president implies, Aries argued sternly. But I do, Idea replied, her tone still light. It's only temporary, but it gives Adele command over Class A as a unit. Aries was visibly exasperated. And you still went ahead with it? You're out of your mind. His voice rose with anger. It's not too late, Idea. Change the class president. Replace him immediately. Idea firmly replied. No. Frustrated, Aries ran a hand through his hair. This is driving me crazy. Instructor Idea looked at him calmly. I like that student, Adele. He's top tier in ability, and unlike the children of the 7 deadly sins, he's not arrogant. Plus, he's backed by the Bears family, so his identity is guaranteed. Aries shook his head. Just because someone's identity is verified doesn't mean they're trustworthy. Nothing is more dangerous than a blind sword. Hearing that, Instructor Idea let out a quiet sigh. I'll handle my class myself, Aries. Please, stay out of this. I may be a new instructor, but I trust my eye for talent. But Idea, Aries began, trying to stop her. Before he could finish, Idea walked out of the room. Aries clenched his fists, thinking to himself, I should have taken over that class, no matter what. I never should have left someone that dangerous in her hands. What troubled him more was the memory of a half-demon who had given him an unforgettable wound in battle. Adele's aura. It's disturbingly similar to that half-demon's. The chances that he's related are slim, but I can't ignore the possibility. It's too suspicious. He still hadn't figured out what Adele was truly after. Ares called for his bird, a scout that had been spying on Adele. The bird landed on his shoulder. So far, nothing particularly unusual, Ares noted. Still, he gave the bird a command. Keep watching him. The scene shifted back to the classroom, where Class A students were busy forming teams during break. Despite being the class president, no one had approached Adele about teaming up. Is it because I look shady or something? He wondered. He turned and saw a few students asking Samuel to join their team. True to form, Samuel shrugged and replied, I don't really care, just don't hold me back. Adele stared in disbelief. Even someone like Samuel has teammates now. Why hasn't anyone come to me? Realizing he had no choice, Adele decided he'd have to make the first move. No one's going to approach a half-demon like me anyway, he thought. I need to form a team before the final lesson. His eyes landed on the pink-haired girl. He approached her and greeted her, but the aura around him seemed to startle her. I must have accidentally scanned her mana, Adele realized. No wonder she looks scared. Her mana levels are good, and she has healing abilities too. She's the perfect teammate. He introduced himself. We've met before, right? Then he asked, have you found a teammate yet? The girl shook her head. Not yet. What's your name? Adele asked. Luna, she replied. That's a lovely name, he said with a warm smile. Why don't you join my team? Being on the same team as the class president will benefit you. Luna hesitated, unsure. Adele stepped a little closer and added, there's not much time before the next lesson. And since we're both half-demons, we'll get along well. Startled but compliant, Luna nodded. Okay, I'll join your team. Adele smiled. Excellent choice. Suddenly, a voice called from behind. What's so excellent about it? Adele turned around, startled. When did she get here? Franz stood behind him, smiling confidently. Looks like you still haven't finalized your team. Fine, I'll accept both you and Luna as my subordinates. Adele frowned. Leave, Franz. Luna and I just formed a team. Don't be ridiculous, Franz scoffed. I heard everything. Luna shifted uncomfortably as the tension between them rose. I still can't acknowledge your position as class president, Franz said firmly. The true leader of this class is me. Adele hesitated. Should I reject her outright? But Franz continued pressing him, demanding an answer. And with no sign of her giving up, Adele realized he had a decision to make. Adele allowed Franz to join his team, on one condition. She could act as the team leader, but she would be required to consult him before making any decisions. As a child of one of the 7 deadly sins, it was smarter to keep Franz close. Adele's plan was to boost her pride while still maintaining control, subtly using her influence to his advantage. The scene shifted to 1 week later. Adele reviewed his stats and muttered to himself, I really need to get an elixir soon or something. His mana growth was one thing, but he still had no understanding of the chaos attribute. Maybe this week's magic class will give me a clue, he hoped. On top of that, Claret's solitude was becoming increasingly unstable. Adele realized he'd probably have to carry it with him at all times now. His worries kept piling up. At least Samuel had been quiet lately. That was one small relief. Things will get better eventually, Adele thought optimistically. Class began as instructor Idea entered, greeting the students with uncharacteristic cheerfulness. Adele noticed it immediately. She seems excited today. Did something good happen? Instructor Idea smiled and announced, today's class will be a little special. We're going to have outdoor practical training. Adele's eyes narrowed slightly. So it's finally happening, the practical training. But outdoors? Idea continued. We'll be leaving Satan for this. The location is called Orgon. Adele's heart skipped a beat. Orgon. That's the prison where humans who failed to return during the Human-Demon War were held. He was stunned. They're taking us to a detention camp? Instructor Idea explained that they would travel via dimensional train and asked the cadets to follow her. The students whispered among themselves, excited at the idea of going beyond the academy walls. Even if it wasn't a vacation, the prospect of leaving campus was thrilling. Adele, however, was less amused. They're all excited just because it's outdoors. But once they realize what Orgon really is, they'll be in for a shock. Still, Adele knew that something far more important awaited in Orgon, something beyond training. There's a special opportunity in Orgon, he remembered, one that the protagonist was supposed to discover later. If I go now, I might be the first to claim it. But can I find it while staying under the radar? The guards there won't be easy to bypass. As Adele pondered, Franz walked up to him. What are you thinking about? Adele responded. It's your first outdoor training too, right? You must be nervous. Franz smirked. So you do get nervous. With that gloomy look on your face, I didn't think you did. She gave him a confident nod. Don't worry. You've got your team leader right here. Just follow my lead. Adele sighed inwardly. She really doesn't get tired, does she? He glanced at her. We'll see if she's still this confident once we reach Oregon. Still, thanks to Franz's energy, Adele felt a little more at ease. The scene shifted to the train. As the landscape blurred past the windows, Adele stared ahead, lost in thought. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. No matter what happens, I will get it.